Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have clairvoyant medium Debra Lynne Katz. She's going to be joining us. She's the author of You Are Psychic, an extraordinary psychic, and I think she has a new book coming out soon, I believe. I don't think it's out yet. Associative Remote Viewing, the science and art of precognition for financials, sports betting, and the lottery. I got to talk about that. People that really know me know I do dabble a little bit in the lottery, more the free lottery, PCH and all that. I have big dreams. I'd like to win. Maybe I got some psychic ability. Maybe I could win. I don't know. I know it's a long shot, but maybe you think you have psychic abilities. Honestly, I think everybody does. But you want to develop them. And I've always been interested in that for myself, and I've dabbled in that too. So tonight's your night to call in and ask Debra. Now, I neglected to ask Debra if she's doing any readings. I don't think she is. We're going to talk about how to develop yourself. Maybe read yourself. You have your abilities. You have abilities to be psychic. I think, like I said, everybody does. And Debra's going to teach you how to do it. We're going to talk about her book, You Are a Psychic, tonight. And, of course, there's a lot of weird to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird, especially with UFO disclosure coming. Yeah, don't get your hopes up. But there is a lot of weird to talk to, so we got a lot to get to with that. And, of course, we will open up the phone lines later in the show for you to call in and ask Debra your questions on how you can become a psychic, or how do you develop your psychic. You already are. Yeah, we're going to talk about that tonight, of course, and it always goes by fast, so let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, Debra Lynne Katz, will join us after the World Wide Web of Weird, after our first commercial break. So if you're here for her, hang in there. But we do have weird stuff. We do always do weird stuff beginning of the show every Sunday night, called the World Wide Web of Weird. I love it. Most of the people, I think, enjoy it. And we have a good time talking about some stupid stuff, some crazy stuff, some just extraordinary stuff. And for people listening on the Paranormal Radio Network, we do share videos, photos, but I try to read the articles. We'll get to that. Joining me every Sunday night is my lovely co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you.
Ready to learn a little bit about how to develop your own psychic abilities? Because I know you do have them. Everybody does, but I think people have developed them more than others, and definitely you have.
Definitely interested in hearing what she's got to say.
I mean, everybody hears about me and all my experiences and stuff. Rob Archery's the quiet one, but I bet he's got some psychic experiences too. How are you tonight, Rob?
I'm definitely a psycho. I mean, psychic.
I agree with the first part. Yes, you're my psycho, Rob.
Hey,
Rob runs the world. Rob runs the World Wide Web of Weird, so he helps me present some of these psycho stories. So let's go ahead and get going into and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought I'd start off with this article. I think it's got one of the weirdest titles. I mean, I've had plenty of weird titles doing the World Wide Web of Weird, but the headline for this title, I was like, what? Man, or missing man, is found dead inside a dinosaur. And my first thought was, well, if there's dinosaurs, you might find some missing people inside of them. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup Radio Network, as I said before, we are a webcast. We're streaming out live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Or not Twitter. Screw Twitter. Twitch. I always get them mixed up. I'm an old man. Like, what's that? Twitter, Twitch. And it's a lot of video game people. But, hey, we had a 13-year-old last Sunday call, and I think caught us on there. So reach new audiences with that. Yeah. But, yes, first up here. Add to stream. There we go. Missing man is found dead inside a dinosaur. I got this from Unexplained Mysteries, but you can find it in a number of different sources. 39-year-old man who has been not named was reported missing by his family on Saturday. This is a Spanish man. I missed that part. He was found only a few hours later by a father and son who noticed that something was amiss concerning a large statue of the Stegosaurus in a Santa Coloma de Garment, Barcelona. When police arrived, they found the missing man's body inside one of the dinosaur legs. It appeared as though he had climbed inside to retrieve his mobile phone and got stuck.
Mama said that'd be days.
Can you zoom in? Can you zoom in on that thing? A father and son noticed that there was something inside and raised the alarm and said, oh, yeah, they thought here we go. Lost my part in the article. So sorry. We found the body of a man inside the leg of this dinosaur statue. It's an accidental death. There was no violence. This person got inside the statue leg and got trapped. It looks as though he was trying to retrieve a mobile phone, which he dropped. It looks like he entered the statue head first and couldn't get out. So it has like a mouth. Like, see, the mouth is open. So that's a big statue. So he climbed up in there into the mouth to get, like, somebody. How did he accidentally get his cell phone in there?
And how the hell did he climb? I mean, that's
he could have been taking a selfie with his head in the mouth.
Maybe, but I'm still like trying to figure out how. It just seems so odd. There's still waiting for the autopsy of the man. It's sad. I mean, that's just horrible. If it's accidental death, either way.
Did you
seems
read
so
that he
suspicious.
actually called for help as he was hanging upside down?
No, I didn't see that. There was no call for help or anything.
Help, and yet, somebody else had to find him in there.
It's like I was telling Jamie the other day. It's like he probably called. I'm stuck in a dinosaur, and they're like, "Yeah, prank call." Never mind. Next.
All I see is he was reported missing by his family. That's it. I didn't see anything about him making a call. But you think he was in there with his cell phone? He found it inside there.
Yeah.
He got
and only a few hours later,
hanging or something.
Hanging, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's probably got to be one of the craziest headlines I've had on this thing. I've had plenty, but
it's a mind
man found dead inside a dinosaur. I thought, what, Jurassic Park? No. Yeah. All right, let's move on. We got another unexplained mystery story. Woman encounters Bigfoot after exiting gym. Unnamed 20-year-old. And remember, I keep saying how I feel like there's going to be more of these kind of encounters, like closer to rural areas and metropolitan areas. because of COVID, because people being locked down for so long, and Bigfoot's like, ooh, I can go out, venture further, maybe. The unnamed 20-year-old had reportedly exited a gym in Ashland, Ohio, around midnight back on April 24th, and had been walking across the well-lit parking lot when the sound of a twig snapping grabbed her attention. She looked up and she caught sight of a large bipedal ape-like creature covered in gray fur. Standing around 7 to 8 feet in height, the creature, which she noted was far too big and bulky to be a man, moved with surprising speed as quickly as it darted back under cover of the trees. The woman was so shaken by the encounter that she had to call her parents to drive her home. According to California Bigfoot investigator Matt Moneymaker, what a great name, her story has all the hallmarks of a genuine encounter. He also noted that her friends and colleagues had later made light of her story, prompting her to request that her name be removed from the online report. She isn't backing off what she claims she saw, said Moneymaker. She stands by what she saw, and so do her parents. She is a young woman and doesn't want people who may be ignorant making fun of her. I believe her, and I do think it happened. It's not a hoax report. I mean, why report it anyways? She's not getting anything out of it, and she doesn't want people to know who she is. Like I said, these things are going to get closer. That's what, that they're real live creatures. It happens with all other kinds of animals. They come into rural metropolitan areas when people get quieter, and there's not as much foot traffic and people around. They get curious.
I just wonder if Matt shakes it. His money
Matt Moneymaker?
Yeah. Does he shake his moneymaker? Okay.
I'm sure he's heard that joke before.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
All right, let's move on. We got some. Now we have this. This is interesting. Bigfoot thermal image. Yowie hunters capture new thermal footage. A Yowie research group in Australia has recorded footage that allegedly shows an elusive creature. Although the encounter with a large bipedal hominids are mostly associated with North America and the Himalayas, stories of such creatures have been reported for hundreds of years in countries all over the world, including Russia and China, even Australia, where it is known locally as the Yowie. In Queensland, a group known as Australia's Yowie Research has spent years hunting for evidence that a large unidentified ape-like creature is roaming the outback. Now researcher Dean Harrison believes that he may have hit the jackpot. Recorded during a recent trip to Springbrook National Park on May 4th, the footage, which was filmed using a thermal camera, shows Harrison describes as two 9 feet tall Yowies. We estimate that they must have been at least 9 feet tall, and they made no noise arriving and no noise leaving that area. We wouldn't have known if anything was there if it wasn't for the thermal cameras. The video, which can be viewed here, we're going to show in a second, is difficult to determine what they could be, let alone accept as definitive proof of a Yowie. I couldn't care less if people refuse to acknowledge their existence, said Harrison. I'm not here to convince them. I'm here to prove the facts. I think it's interesting. Go ahead and play it. We'll see what people think here. Yeah, I won't let you do full screen. It's all right. It ain't going to help the footage any. It's something on the thermal camera. Is that a Yowie? I don't know.
And he said there was two of them?
Yeah. Almost looks like there's some hands there, or maybe like a weird head. I don't know. And then that one shot they show there, is that supposed to be it, like doing a photobomb on them in the background? I don't know.
Or is it like comparison to...
Yeah, I think it was like a comparison. But if he's in a Bigfoot suit and he's covered up and stuff, then he'd have heat spots coming through that costume.
The suit, yeah. That's like heat spots on it. But then again, animal covered in fur, I mean, I don't know how much of it's going to come through. Or
well, real animals on a thermal looks like
you see all of it.
An animal.
Yeah. So I thought it was weird that it's splotchy.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's interesting. I don't know if it's not proof, but it's interesting.
It's something.
Something. All right, moving on. I covered this a long time ago about Jenna Bush talking about that White House being haunted. I didn't know her mother, Laura Bush. I'm not a fan of the Bush, if you didn't know. Her mother, Laura Bush, totally poo-pooed her on that in an interview, basically said she had an imagination. Well, now Jenna's good for Jenna. I'm going to say this. This is one Bush I will support. Good for Jenna, because she's sticking to her claim. She was kind of little. Sounds like she's a little mad at her mom in this interview. I can't play the interview, but Jenna Bush Hager defends claim that White House is haunted after Laura Bush said it's not. I love my mom, but the ghost might not have been into her. Yeah, I wouldn't have been into her either. And so the saga Jenna Bush Hager and the alleged haunted White House continues. If you haven't kept up, Jenna and her mom, Laura Bush, are currently in a disagreement over whether or not the ghosts reside in the White House. In October 2020, Jenna appeared on the Kelly Clarkson show where she told the story of what she and her sister Barbara Bush experienced as a musical paranormal encounter. This week, Laura visited Kelly and dismissed her daughter's account. I think Barbara and Jenna were the ones that felt like it was haunted and pretended like they heard voice. Pretended. Look at her mom's response there. This just screams bitch. I think Barbara and Jenna were the ones that felt like it was haunted and pretended like they heard voices. I'm going to do it in my most Valley Girl bitchy voice. It's probably just the Secret Service talking down the hall in the other room that they heard, but we didn't think it was haunted. Well, there's a lot of history, Laura Bush, if you'd paid attention to haunting reports. I mean, there's tons of stories of people having encounters in the White House. But Jenna is not backing down. Good for her. May 18th, unscripted segment of Today with Hodo and Jenna. She once again defended her case. Previously on the Kelly Clarkson show, she explained that it all happened when she and Barbara were going to bed. Then the phone rang and they heard what she described as 1920s piano music coming from the fireplace. And I was like, surely it was the cat or something. We had to pretend in the middle of the night, but you could feel the music coming out of the fireplace. On the Today show, Jenna offered further explanation. What we did to put ourselves to sleep, there's a piano outside her room. We pretended that the cat must have gotten onto the piano, she said. But to make her story even more credible, she named another witness. There's an incredible man, Buddy, who still works at the White House. We adore him. And I said, Buddy, you wouldn't believe what Barbara and I heard last night. And he said, oh, Jenna, you wouldn't believe what I've seen in these walls. So who do we believe? That's the thing. The people who work there, have talked about it. I mean, you're talking, a lot of history there. A lot of history, Laura Bush, where you just say, oh, no, it's not haunted. It goes against my conservative Christian values to say it's haunted. You ignorant, whatever. Good for Jenna Bush.
I'm going for Jenna.
Yeah, good for Jenna Bush for not backing down and let her mom belittle her. Say, they pretended they heard voices. What a crap remark. I hate the sometimes people, I swear. Yeah, like I said, I'm not a fan of the Bush family. Okay, let's move on. Speaking of haunted, we got a haunted hotel video here. Watch eerie activity filmed at haunted hotel in Texas. A spooky piece of footage was a notoriously haunted hotel in Texas shows toys that seemingly move on their own and an eerie shadow anomaly that sweeps through the room. According to a local media report, the video was recorded last week by a security camera at the Magnolia Hotel in the city of Seguin. The establishment was built in 1840, was the site of the particularly grisly incident in 1874 where a little girl was murdered by an axe-wielding intruder. It is believed the spirit of the youngster named Emma has remained at the hotel over time and made her presence known in a variety of ways. In the strange scene captured the past weekend, multiple odd events unfolded, and there are. I zoomed on a couple of them. You first see the toys move. A ball unexpectedly rolls across the floor while a pair of REM pods furiously flash. They seem to move too. These devices, popular paranormal investigators, are said to only illuminate when they are being touched by something. As this is happening, a shadowy form can be seen briefly entering the room before vanishing under a table. And upon the appearance of the puzzling anomaly, a dress on a nearby mannequin flutters as the air is being disturbed. As one might imagine, the owners of the hotel believe that the weird happenings seen in the video are a result of a building's ghost paying a visit to the site. This is our children's room where all of our little spirits enjoy playing because they're all the toys, co-owner Aaron Giddy explained. This is definitely sweet Emma because she is the one who enjoys rolling the ball. All right, go ahead and play that paranormal bean footage there. You see the REM pods blinking. And there's a shadow that's going to move across. Or wait, did we miss that part? It'll play again. Yeah, there it is. It comes across in the room.
If those are like actual REM pods, they're not going to
move either.
No.
You see how they move?
Yeah, those things are moving around. If those are
the ball, I would be maybe it's an unbalanced floor,
Yeah,
but the REM pods.
But yeah, the REM
see how they move too? Like what's going on with that? Are they ball REM pods? Because maybe they're like cat. They said they're REM pods. That's weird. I don't know. All right, so there's a zoom in I do of the shadow, and there's a zoom in I do of it also pulling on the dress. If people missed that, here's the shadow comes into the room. And then this is the dress around the same time that gets pulled. Now, this is I don't know about the shadow. I can't explain the shadow. Only thing I could say, if there was some way there's air being forced through that room, that would explain the balls and everything maybe getting pushed. I don't know if those are solid little REM pod boxes or there's like some kind of special REM pod balls that can be played with. Maybe that could be possible. The ghost hunters are coming up with this kind of stuff. Wind come through, push it, and that's why that dress blows back. I can't tell you about the shadow. And so it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, they got a lot going on. I'll say that for. I don't think it's shenanigans. I don't.
Yeah, there's a lot happening.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. There are these REM pod bobs. Here we go. Messenger. What's she say? Messenger Gardens Paranormal. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think they are. They are cat balls. I have 2 of them in my equipment bag. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I was like, if those are REM, traditional REM pods, and they're moving around like that, that's.
If there wasn't the shadow in the room that comes in the room, I would have to say a lot about this video. Would be good possibility on balanced floor, maybe some wind or air movement we don't know about from the other end that we can't see. But you have to have the shadow that comes in the room, so I don't know. And it's always on the investigators. They know if it's legit or not by where the camera's positioned, what other possibilities are. That's on them. So
and if
I don't think it's shenanigans.
Stuff or not.
Yeah, I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it is, but who knows? You never know in this world of internet illusion. All right, we got to move on here before we run out of time. This is eerie. I always love the ghost photo bombs. And this one's definitely eerie, and they usually are eerie. Mom says flats are haunted after a group of 7 girls discover 8th woman in the room with them. Rebecca Glassborough has been having sleepless nights after the spine-shivering figure appeared behind her in a group of pals. A freaked-out mom has become convinced her block of flats are haunted after enjoying a night with 6 of her pals, only for a photo to capture an 8th woman in the room with them. Rebecca Glassborough has been left having sleepless nights after the spine-shivering figure appeared behind her and a group of pals, and they huddled around for a snap as they enjoyed drinks together back in October. The 30-year-old said that they all glanced over their shoulder wondering what the figure could have been, but a few of them believe it appears to be a woman with long brown hair. The photo shows the group of 7 girls posing for the camera while what appears to be a gaunt female with long dark hair lingers in the background over one of their shoulders. The mother of one admits she has been left creeped out by the scary snap as she lives above the flat where the photograph was taken and has been kept awake at night with the thoughts of the figure. So at least it was in the flat. It wasn't hers, but it's the same building. It looks like something out of The Grudge. I mean, it does look creepy.
Looks like Michael Myers with long hair.
I mean, I couldn't explain why that face is there. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I mean, I can't give you an explanation what would put that face there, unless it was shenanigans, but I don't think so. And these things end up happening. She might not have anything to worry about either. It could be attached to somebody in her group. Just got to get rid of one of your friends. Yeah. I don't know. If nothing else is happening in her home, there's been no other activity or anything then I think she should be fine. But it would be unnerving. These ghost photobombs, especially when they look like, it's never like, hi, up there with their thumbs up and like happy smiling. No, it's always some tortured look and it's something out of The Grudge, every time. It always has to be like, I'm going to photobomb you. I'm dying in hell, or something. It's always horrible. Can't be a nice photobomb. It'd be great, like, oh, look, Casper, he's up there giving a thumbs up. No, it's got to be the girl that comes out of the TV in The Ring or The Grudge, whatever. I forget which movie's which. Get them all mixed up. They all look the same. All terrifying. Yeah, there you go. You had to do that. All right. Usually I start out with these updates about the UFO disclosure at the beginning of the World Wide Web Weird. I decided to save this one for last. And there's a number of articles all about the new radar footage, which we are going to show here. But I'm not going to read their whole article, but I have the article from Daily Wire, which is, if you don't know who they are, they're like Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles and I forget the other guy's name who actually was trying to defend his position. They had this little couch round. I had to watch. I'm like, a bunch of conservative talking heads trying to grasp the UFO disclosure and are aliens real? I got to watch this. Oh my God. It was shameful. They are so ignorant of the whole thing. They are such skeptical buttheads, except for one of them. And the one I can't remember his name that's on there was trying to defend the position is not crazy to think these are aliens. While they're like, oh, that's like the least likely. The owner of Daily Wire, I don't know his name, is another little nerdy little jerk off. Was this like, it's the least likely possibility that it's aliens. I'm like, boy, you guys there's so much history, there's so much stuff you don't know because you don't care to look. You're so caught up in your little Republican bubble. You have no idea, you poor souls. I'm like, and I had a comment, welcome to the party, pal, to these guys on one of their videos, because I been talking about this stuff for years, man. You guys are totally clueless. Anyways, Jeremy Corbell has released more footage, this time of the radar footage. This came from the 2019 U.S. Navy warship, was swarmed by UFOs. The radar footage shows what they filmed in a combat information center on USS Omaha, July 15th, 2019. This is a corroborative electro-optic data demonstrating a significant UFO event in a series of warning areas off of San Diego. So remember the video of the UFO going in the ocean? I think this is around the same event. So go ahead and roll that too. Watch out, the video. It's not too high. There we go. Now I don't know crap about radar. My dad worked radar in the Navy, and I don't know how much it's changed since when he did it. Probably a lot. I'd love to get his input on what's going on here, because I have no idea. I don't know nothing about radar, but it does seem like you see a bunch of dots and things flying around the ship. I guess that's the ship. I don't know which dot's supposed to be the ship or what they're looking at, but it's got these guys excited. They don't know what it is. And listen to this roundtable of conservative talking heads from the Daily Wire. You know, they're like trying to say, well, least likely possibility is aliens. It could be seagulls that they're getting on. I'm like, you're talking about just the radar. You're forgetting about all of the video footage. Oh, well, that could be this. And, you know, like, you guys are so out of your depth.
Yeah.
That was crazy. One of them just like darted.
Yeah, they start talking about how fast they move.
Like how quick it just disappeared.
They're amazed by how fast they move.
That's now, ship radar?
Yeah, it's for the USS Omaha. I don't think it was the radar on the ship, though. I think it was another station monitoring with the whole training, because they had a whole training operation, if I believe, was going on. And one of the points that these conservative moderators on the Daily Wire made is like, well, it's controlled airspace. It's where they would test this kind of stuff if it's ours. You're right, but you think they would snub this down a long time ago if it was ours.
Yeah.
You know? And you got to think, if they got that kind of technology to make these things that defy, you know, laws of physics, half of them, a lot of these videos, then they're really holding back on the technology that could change the world and help a lot of people.
And that might be stuff that, you know, extraterrestrials might be interested in seeing what we're doing. So, you know, they could, if there is a training going on, doesn't mean there's not still visitors wanting to check it out too.
Yeah, that's why I think them saying it's the least likely explanation it's aliens is such crap. Like, there's a lot of things are less likely. Like seagulls are less likely than aliens, in my opinion. I'm just saying they can't go 70 knots. I'm sorry, I don't know a seagull that can. You know, I mean, just saying. All right, seagulls. Yeah, jet powered seagulls. All right, that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. When we come back, our guest tonight is Debra Lynne Katz. She is a clairvoyant, and she's author of You Are Psychic and the Extraordinary Psychic, and she's got a soon to be released book, Associative Remote Viewing: The Science and Art of Precognition for Financial Support Betting and the Lottery. I'd love to talk about with some money. Now, you know, you can develop your psychic abilities. I think everybody can. I don't know about winning the lottery. I'm not going to listen. I'm not making any promises with that. But tonight, we will open the phone lines later if you want to talk to Debra, to have a question about how to develop your own abilities. I have questions for myself. You guys hear about my experiences all the time on this show. And you're going to hear about them again, because I want to learn. I do want to learn how to develop these things that happen to me randomly. Be interested, and I'm sure you do too. All right, guys, we'll be right back after a short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping, haunted horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest. The true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS range ring.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight, our guest is Debra Lynne Katz. Debra Lynne Katz is an internationally renowned speaker and founder and director of the International School of Clairvoyance, one of the first online schools in the world to offer interactive small group clairvoyant training in a teleseminar and webinar format. Debra is an author of You Are Psychic, Extraordinary Psychic, and Feeling the Genie Within. She has been a professional clairvoyant, healer, medium for the past 25 years and is a parapsychologist and a research subject. She has performed thousands of clairvoyant readings to help people understand more about themselves and their lives and relationships. She's also an accomplished remote viewer, having assisted with financial forecasting, business consulting, finding lost objects, and occasionally crime solving, and even treasure hunting. She is currently a PhD student in psychology at the University of West Georgia and holds a master's degree in social work with a BA in psychology. She's a former federal U.S. probation officer, legal advocate for domestic violence victims, director of the day programs for adults with development disabilities, and it's an honor to have her on the show tonight. Like I said, I know many of you, I believe everybody has psychic abilities, some more than others, and you've all heard my experiences. I've shared plenty of times on the show, and I'll probably share some more to get Debra's insights tonight, but I want you to call in tonight with your questions on how to develop your own psychic abilities. We will open up the phone lines after our next commercial break, so hang in there. But we got a lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, let's see. Let's make sure our guest we can hear. How you doing tonight, Debra?
Hi, I'm great, Jason. Nice to be here with you.
It's an honor to have you on the show. So tonight, I want to get this out because I forgot I should have asked you this. Are you not going to do readings tonight, right? No, I didn't think so. But we're going to talk about how people can do readings themselves and develop it themselves.
Absolutely.
So I find your story a little bit really interesting. That you went from like being a probation officer, working in a very serious field, to eventually becoming in big time into the clairvoyant, being a medium, and then teaching others how to do it. How did this journey begin for you?
Well, gosh, I can say that I always had a fascination with these topics and early childhood experiences because I'm an identical twin. So my sister and I constantly would have we didn't really understand what was going on at the time, but later we knew they were telepathic experiences and being able to feel each other's emotions and sensations and all of that. And sometimes we would even have shared dreams where we would know what the other was dreaming or be able to influence each other's dreams. And we would also sometimes see the same apparitions around our house and not really realize that the other one was seeing them until much later, the same thing. So we were very interested in all of this. And so we searched high and low for anything we could find that would help us to know how we could bring this out more and get more control over these experiences. But we really were not able to find too much out there except just books that would say, well, if you meditate, you're likely to have these experiences, but nothing like really definitive. And then around the time when I was around 27 or so, and I had become a federal probation officer in Northern California, it was a really stressful job. It was cool in some ways, but really stressful. And so I signed up for meditation classes at a school that also taught clairvoyance and how to do readings on people. And I never in a million years thought I would be doing anything like that. In fact, I went to a psychic when I was about 18, and she told me someday I would be doing what she did. And I just thought that was ludicrous because I wouldn't know how to do that.
Right.
And so, but I found out soon that this really is something that you can develop, that so many people can do this, and there's a lot to it. But what I really discovered was that if you just learn some simple ways to focus your mind and approaches, and then you just practice a ton, then you can get better and better at these things. So pretty much as I was developing, I was just totally obsessed. I would be practicing every day. And after a year of practicing and intensive meditation, I just started to undergo so many changes. And I ended up also getting really heavily into energy healing and having just all kinds of dreams that told me pretty much what I was doing was just not in alignment with who I was and where I needed to go. So I ended up retiring when I called it retiring without any, of course, retirement other than, okay, here's your final check. But I just knew I couldn't do that work anymore, and I had to somehow find a way to do what was in alignment with myself. And it was a struggle for many years. I moved to the Philippines at that point and studied with different psychic surgeons and healers and had all kinds of interesting experiences there. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit. And then, I just never looked back and just kept going forward. And now 25 years later or so, here I am. And this is what I live and breathe and do every second of my life.
You were 27 when you quit the probation?
Well, actually, I was about 26 or 7 when I started. Well, I would say I quit in probably at age 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's a tough choice to make. I feel with you because I had a moment in my life where I thought I was going to be a police officer and went through the training, was working at the police station, and I felt haunted there, like by something telling me this is not what you want to do. Boy, was it right. Boy, was it right.
Oh, well, what were you doing at the police station?
Well, I was going to be a police officer. I was a rookie in training, sworn-in officer. I was the rookie getting yelled at all the time. But that wasn't the reason why I quit. I just something kept on telling me. Every day I had an anxiety about it. Every day something was telling me, you don't belong here. You do not belong here. Besides some of the senior officers saying, you don't belong here, rookie. But it was like, I would see like this glimmering figure. There's this creepy old basement they had in the old police department. And I would see like this glimmering figure. And I saw it 3 times. And the third time I saw it, I said, that's it. And I quit.
Really?
I would always see it near the gym area. I don't know if it was a ghost. I don't know what it was. Welcome to me, Debra. I am weird. I've seen things since I was a kid.
That's
compared
not weird in the least. I think it's weird that people don't
part of the course.
do those things.
Yeah, and I was aware of that kind of stuff then. I got early on in my 20s really interested in this stuff. But at the same time, I wanted to have like a solid life and not get 12. I didn't want to be a psychic or anything like that. And I still don't say I am, but I have all these experiences just keep happening.
Yeah, that's so cool that you were a police officer or almost one. And
I was technically one, but you wouldn't want me backing you up.
Oh no, that's funny. Well, it's such an important job for the right person, but it's the right person. And I just knew I didn't want to be controlling people's lives.
Exactly.
It's such a tough situation because on the one hand, the public does need to be protected from many people.
Yes.
There are a lot of bad, evil people out there, but then there's just a lot of people that just make mistakes or get into just challenging situations, and it's just rough. So yeah.
We're not gonna. I know you're like, let's not get into the defund the police topic.
We've heard enough of that lately.
You're right. We're all hearing enough. We're all hearing enough about that every damn day. Like you try going out there without police protection on your streets. See how that works out for you. No, I have true respect for police, but I also know there's no way in the heck I could do it. Like I said, I felt haunted by something, and it is stressful to make that choice. Like, okay, I'm not doing this, and stepping away from it, and to get into weird stuff. You said you had a psychic tell you. I sat down on my. We went on our honeymoon and when I had a tarot reading. And the lady told me, and I was getting ready to be a police officer, and she says, I see something in law enforcement, but you're not going to be a cop. I said, oh, well, that's actually what I am going to be. She says, no, you're going to be doing something in this field, in the paranormal, maybe something with law enforcement in the paranormal. I don't know, but I see something you doing something in the paranormal.
Wow.
At
the time, did you just think, oh, that she's a terrible psychic? She doesn't know what she's talking about?
No, I was always open to it because of my own personal experiences. I was always open to it. Maybe not as much back then as I am now. I did try to pull a fast one on her. I took my new wedding ring off and put it in my pocket, and I went in there and I was like waiting. And she's like, I see like a recent, like you're gonna get married really soon. I said, you're late. Not happy with me. I was that jerk.
Yeah, it's rough. It's not easy being any kind of a psychic for reasons just like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I've never I've had an interest in it since forever, since I was a little kid. You remember those gray, what were they? They're like unexplained mysteries books, whatever. You had like a collection. They were like an Encyclopedia Britannica, but for the weird. I had those books. My mom and my aunt had those books, and me and my cousins, we would read them and try to meditate. I was all into that stuff, but yeah, I was a bit of a jerk to a psychic, and from there I learned why I wouldn't want to do it, because there's plenty of other assholes like me. Excuse my French, shouldn't cuss on my show. That have these expectations of psychics. It's false expectations by Hollywood or whatever, and that's a tough score to settle with people when you're doing readings, I'm sure.
Well, and it's tough for people because both the expectations other people have for them and the doubts and skepticism, but it's also for then what we put on ourselves, because the way our intuitive perceptual abilities work is not exactly the same as our other perceptual abilities work. And so that there's parallels, but it's not the same. How you see with your physical eyes is not exactly how it is when you're getting clairvoyant images or visions or things like that. So just even I'll have a lot of students say, well, I'm getting like a quick flash and a sense of something, and I can, it's enough to describe the image, but it's not like the image stays there, or, it's as bold as how you might just, I don't know why people have the expectation, maybe just with your eyes open, if things stay there, it's all clear, and it's just not the same. But that doesn't mean that the person doesn't have psychic abilities. It's just different, and learning how to work with that difference is really the big challenge. And
shaped by Hollywood. I mean, when I was a kid, one of my favorite movies was Dead Zone. Christopher Walken would grab the guy's hand, he'd freeze up, and they had all these flashes and all this information. And people have these scenes they see in Hollywood in movies, and that's what they expect. A full-on psychic's going to be doing that, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean,
Usually.
every once in a while it can, where you just, whether you call it a download or you just get something really strong and a stream of pictures comes in, but a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's much more subtle, and then a lot of it is there. You have to be so careful because it's just so easy to interpret things in the wrong way. And even your example is great, where the tarot card reader you went to, you said she got something about law enforcement. It's just, she may not have known, were you just in it? Are you currently in it? So there's aspects that are spot on, and then others that the complete picture didn't show itself. And so then that's where the skill of the psychic comes in, to try to weed out, okay, what did I get for sure, and what is maybe some assumptions around this? And I think some psychics don't want to admit, well, I don't really know where we are in time. I know you're going to do something with law enforcement, but did you just leave, or are you about to go into it? In this moment, I can't tell. And then there may be other times where, yeah, I have no doubt, you're about to do this. So you have to be discerning like that, and sometimes say, okay, I just don't know. But then there are ways to go in and get more information, but it takes a lot of concentration and a lot of self-discipline, and it's really hard to do that when you've got another person sitting there with, whether they have their expectations or you just think they have expectations. A lot of people are super supportive when they come for a reading, but we can still be nervous about what they're thinking.
Yeah. Well, I asked this to a psychic we had on not long ago. Mike, was it Mike Anthony? No, not Mike. I get two different Peter Anthony, I think it was. Yeah, because I had a Mike Anthony, I had a Peter Anthony. Peter Anthony was a psychic, I believe. I asked him this, and he kind of wasn't sure. I mean, he said, yeah, it could play a factor. And I always wondered, because I have friends that are mediums and psychics, been there. When they go to give a reading to somebody, I know it's a super skeptic. Of psychics. And I swear I watched somebody who has really great abilities. They've blown people away, suddenly have difficulty with this person. When people have such serious skepticism towards it, does that block it, intrude on the fact of you trying to read them?
Oh, it does so much. And it does, It does for a number of reasons. I mean, one is that you're reading that in a person. So as you're sitting there with the person, you can, a lot of times the feeling is the strongest thing. So you can feel like, they don't trust you, or that they're trying to kind of trip you up, or you just feel all this doubt. And then the other thing is that a lot of skeptics are very, very closed. So they're like, they might want, on the one hand, they want to test you, but on the other hand, like, they don't want you to like see into everything, into their lives. So it is like literally hitting a wall. And, sometimes you can still penetrate that, but it's really hard. And maybe the reason they are skeptics is because they are more closed. And so they're not having the same level of like spontaneous experiences like you talked about, as a kid. From the time you were a kid, you've had these things, maybe they're, and I do think that there's some differences even in our makeup, like whether the way our brains work, our minds work, maybe our energy fields. So there are some people that are just not having the same level of experience. And so then why should they believe in it? And so it's kind of a self-perpetuating.
It is. It is. And I'm not saying what psychics do is a magic trick, but I've always said, there's always the kind of the paradox, like if consciousness controls reality, like in mass consciousness controls reality, like if you have an illusionist that's going to do a trick, and everybody knows when a magician says, I'm going to do this trick, they're expecting that trick to happen. What if a magician pulled the rug out from under him and actually did real magic? He could actually, if the theory stands that consciousness can affect reality, he might actually pull off that magic trick because everybody there believes he will. It's the same, kind of the same paradox for you as a psychic. If they don't believe, they strongly don't believe, it blocks you. And I've known, I did tarot readings when I was in my 20s. I was experimenting with that. I was trying to develop my abilities back then on my own. And I had a lady who was a professional tarot reader make me give her a reading, and she made me take her $20. She says, you have to take the money because it's giving you permission to read me. It's a physical energy exchange. I'm like, oh, that's a nice way to explain that, right? But she goes, no, I'm serious. You have to get permission from people to read them. And that's what I always wondered about the skeptics, is their closeness and their, like, this isn't real, isn't a way of them not giving you permission to read them either.
Exactly. That's a really good way to put it. And when I used to do free readings, when I first got started for the first couple of years or so, I had so many more skeptical people come to me. So in charging, it does weed out the people who are, more serious.
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, exactly. And, but that's not to say, of course, there's so many people who would love to get readings and they just can't afford it, or they just can't see, spending that kind of money when they need to pay their rent or utility bills. So that's not to say that's true with everyone, of course, but it does. I find that, if people are going to invest in something, then they do tend to show up more. And it really is about, it's not that we're just doing something to other people. They are participating with us. So they're showing us, they're sharing their mental imagery. Not through speaking, but just they project it from themselves. So they very much show up and participate or not.
Yeah, that's what I wondered, is how much the person being read involved in this matters. Their permission, their energy, their thought and belief in it. How much that matters.
It does. I can tell how psychic someone is, like when they come for a reading, and I just, if the pictures, if my images are really vivid, they're coming really fast, they're really easy to work through, I know that person I'm reading is way more psychically open. And I'll oftentimes have a sense, like if there's a professional psychic, like I'll know it. Or someone that is going to be. And it's not because like I heard, this person is psychic. It's actually kind of an analytic feature of me analyzing how my imagery is coming in, or how how it's all coming to me. So in the same way, like if my images are really funny, if I just start making jokes and I have really funny looking impressions, I know that person has a great sense of humor. And it also, I'm sure you are very much into the law of attraction and how we can use our thoughts or direct our thoughts and visions and emotions in order to create what we would like to have for ourselves in our lives. So the power of our thoughts, both conscious thoughts and unconscious thoughts, is really something that it's a real thing. And we can either just be slaves to whatever our minds are doing, or we can get control over our minds. And that's something I've studied for a long time. And my third book, Freeing the Genie Within, is all about this, is how to overcome obstacles to manifesting. But what I think is so cool is I'll read a person and I'll know if that person has been practicing with the law of attraction or with these concepts, as opposed to a person who has never even thought of these concepts. And again, I'll know it because it shows up. It shows up right away that they've worked through, and I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it'll come in through pictures showing that just what used to be harder in life is no longer harder. Like they can just access whatever they want in life easier and easier. And I'll get a sense it's because they've been working on this for a while. Now, sometimes people are just like born with that too. Like some people are just born into this lifetime with I call it like a blessed life, like whether they're going to get a blessed family or a blessed, just, financially, they never have to worry their whole life. But there's other people who, yes, they had to work with these concepts and it shows up right away. That's what's given me even more confirmation that we really do have control over everything that's not everything, but a lot of what shows up in our life is a feature of how we're putting our thoughts out there and showing up.
I talk about it on this show. I've mentioned it before. I work retail as a manager, and I do sales with customers on a sales floor. And every so often, I'll get a feeling about a customer, and we'll just start talking and having a conversation. And I'll bring up, and I have a show you can check out, Paranormal Soup, shameless plug. And they'll turn out, oh my God, I've had this experience, and every time I have that feeling, it's always that person opens up, oh, wow, I'm really into this. And I'll find out they're into all this paranormal stuff or UFOs or ghosts or whatever, but something tells me to. I could be completely wrong, and that person's like, get away from me, because I know there's people who react that way to these subjects. So I take a risk, bringing that out, but it's like a little inner voice tells me, and I know, and I'll bring it up, shamelessly plug my show, because that's about one viewer at a time I'm getting, and it'll turn out every time. It's so weird.
Yeah, so weird that there'll be someone who's open to these things.
That's a lot of attraction right there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I think about. For people, I was talking. Everybody's psychic. Your book, You Are Psychic. I think people have the experiences all the time. They just don't realize they're psychic experiences. Again, just the other day, I was heading back into my work, and I see this car coming. And I knew right away, even though I couldn't see who was in the car, and I didn't know what car they drove, I knew it was an ex-girlfriend of mine.
Really?
I didn't know what car she drove. I had no idea. I hadn't seen her in a long time, and I just knew. And here she comes rolling around, and yep, that's her. How do I know that?
Well, and do you think if you hadn't had many experiences before, you might have just ignored when you had that thought? Or did you feel like this time you had the thought and you could have more confidence that it really was correct because you've had these other experiences?
Yeah, I'm totally open to it, but I can see how people who aren't or not have these experiences and just brush them off because they're not experienced with any of this. They haven't had the life I've had where I've had tons of weirdness, and so they don't pay attention to it.
Yeah. One of my favorite books was written by Mark Twain, and it wasn't Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. It was a book about telepathy. And actually, I think it's called Mental Telegraphy. And he wrote it in the late 1800s. And what happened was basically, well, in those days, the only kind of communication would happen by letter, and it would,
Right.
and he was living over in the UK at this time, and he said his first realization that telepathy was happening was that he started to think of a friend that he hadn't thought of in about 10 years, and he suddenly got this idea that he thought his friend should write a book about. And he became obsessed about this idea and how important it would be for his friend to write this book, but he hadn't even talked to his friend in like a decade. And so he was going to write to him and say, hey, here's my idea, you should do this. But he thought, well, first I really need to secure a publisher so I don't get his hopes up. So he's having this whole dialogue with himself, and he could not believe when about 3 days later, a letter arrives. Now, this letter had been mailed out months before, and it was a letter from that person. And in the letter, the man outlined the exact idea, and he was writing to Mark Twain because he wanted to see if he can get him a publisher for that book idea. And it was like almost word for word. So he realized that yes, he really studied his thoughts, and he was like, I was almost obsessed with this idea. So the next time this happened, and again, there was ample opportunity because there was such a delay you knew that the letter had to have been sent way in advance. So it wasn't that he was making his friend have an idea. He was definitely receiving the information. So he just started to pay attention to this, and it happened more and more to the point where he said, yes, now I'm getting control over this because I could recognize it. And he really got to the point where the moment he would have a thought of someone where he hadn't been thinking of them before, and he felt like really strong about it, he had no doubt, like his certainty was so high. So I thought that was really cool. And also that this is something I just recently learned about, how many of like our great American writers, Upton Sinclair, he did telepathy experiments with his wife. Even Einstein did around 1930 did telepathy experiments. And so they would take what they were just having these spontaneous experiences in their everyday life, and then they would try to repeat it in the lab, or at least get some degree of control over it. And that's really all we're doing, when we're trying to develop our abilities to do readings or other types of psychic work.
Well, Mark Twain and Einstein were both very imaginative. They spent a lot of time up in their noggin, and I think imagination has a lot to do with it, because a lot of things I've thought of things through, I just imagining, thinking of a story, turns out to be something true, or next movie script I didn't know about. It happens, but you think Einstein and Mark Twain are intellectually honest enough to recognize the signs of like, wait a second, how did I know this? And wanted to discover more about it. They're both, like I said, they didn't just, oh, that can't be real. They didn't write it off. They're both, like I said, intellectually honest, imaginative people that wanted to discover more about this ability. And I think that I've heard the story about Einstein. I've never, and Mark Twain. I just never read Mark Twain's book on it. I'd love to. But that's so interesting that he, really had these experiences. And like I said, these guys are in their head a lot. They're writing, they're imaginative. Einstein's thinking about how the universe works, while Mark Twain's, coming up with a great American novel. These guys are in their head a lot, and they're there to recognize these signs.
Yeah, they're paying attention to their dreams. They would meditate, and I think it's their attention to detail, and I think that's part of it. They pay attention to detail on what's outside of them, but also what's in them, and of course they're intellectually very brilliant too, so that helps as well.
Like I said, intellectually honest, because I think there's a lot of smart intellectual people out there, but they're not honest with themselves sometimes when they try to be so skeptical. They they write off their own experiences. And go ahead.
Yeah, it's being so open-minded that you can think a different thought than you had the day before, or that everyone else is having. And that it's the breaking away from the group think and the ability to look at things from different angles. That's something I see a lot in my readings, like people, like really creative people, they can look at things from, I'll get like an image of a Rubik's Cube where there's so many different facets, and they could look at all the different facets and from all these different angles and inside and outside. And sometimes some people can have like multiple streams of information, multiple thoughts about different things at the very same time. And then there's others who they just can't do that. That's just not how their brains work. That, you know, they may still be very smart in other aspects. Intelligence is such a complex thing, but yeah, definitely the way their minds are structured is pretty unique.
Well, Einstein, I mean, some people theorize that he was grabbing his knowledge from the universal consciousness, you know, the information that, you know, I mean, look how quickly he put out all of his papers. It's like he had an explosion of knowledge. You know, Tesla, they've talked about Tesla, the way he could, you know, like they're literally pulling stuff from the ether. You know, just, you know, it's not saying they're not brilliant. It's just saying they're tuned into something that of information that anybody could access if they had their ability.
Yeah, and they were the first ones to say it. Yeah, that they're getting their information from outside themselves. It's not just what their brains already know.
Now, my understanding of the mediums and psychics and different people I know, and from my reading and all that, is, you know, every person are stronger in certain abilities. You're a clairvoyant. You want to talk a little bit about what it means to be a clairvoyant, and we could talk about some of the other abilities people are strong in?
Yeah, sure. Well, I do like to be specific about our abilities, because I think the more you can put terminology onto it, the more you can just be aware of each one of these, and then start to practice each one. And now different people have different definitions with these, but I like to define clairvoyance in a very specific term. So at least having to do with visual. So it's where you would get pictures, colors, mental images, but it would be something where you can say, I saw this, even if it was just a really brief flash, but you could describe it visually. And then clairsentience would be the psychic ability where you can feel energy or other people's emotions or sensations. And that's also today being an empath or being empathic. Those are other terms for clairsentience. So then there's clairaudience, being able to hear, whether just hearing other spirits or other messages. Now, clairaudience and telepathy are very closely linked. Telepathy would be more like mind-to-mind communication, but you could also have like mind-to-heart communication. There's different parts of people that seem to communicate all at the same time. Like sometimes I have a sense when I'm doing a reading that I'm communicating with the person's conscious mind, unconscious. Sometimes I feel like it's their brain, their analytical mind, and then their heart, then their internal self. Then there'll be communication from other spirits. Sometimes living people around them will even communicate. So there's all these kinds of communications all over the place that can happen telepathically as well. And then one, I would say also that I became more aware of when I started to do remote viewing, because some modes of remote viewing, such as controlled remote viewing, it requires you to write. So like when I do psychic readings, I'm just verbally talking, but when I'm doing remote viewing sessions, I'm writing everything down and sketching. And when you sketch, an interesting thing starts to happen, which is that sometimes you are just drawn to, you do something on the paper that you did not plan to do, or it's not that you saw it or heard it. But for example, like let's say I was assigned a photograph, like that's just a practice thing people would do, is you get a photograph and you see if you can tune into it in advance. So like if there was a tower, let's say like the Leaning Tower of Pisa that is leaning, I might see an image of a tower shaped building. So I start to sketch it, but maybe I didn't see it lean. But when I go to draw it, I realize I just drew it leaning. And it's when you first start to do this, you think usually like, oh, this is a crappy drawing. I just didn't do a good job, and you might want to erase it. But after you have this happen a few times, you see your feedback photo, and it's like, oh, wait a second, the building is leaning. I shouldn't have erased that, Or another example would be that usually, like, you draw your things maybe kind of on the smaller side or medium side, and then one time you're just like totally drawn to draw something really big on the paper, and I've had that happen where I just feel like I'm being kind of insane because I just want to draw so big, and then it turns out the target is like an elephant in this tiny little something enormous, or a big mountain range or something like that. And so I call that like somatic intelligence or body intelligence. I'm trying to think of other words and yeah, I think those would be the best words for that. But it's the same thing. Like if not too long ago, I was driving in Hollywood traffic, and I was in one lane, and I just suddenly got this feeling like I just wanted to move lanes. Like I didn't know why, but all of a sudden I just wanted to go into this other lane and not be in the lane I was in. And it didn't make any sense because they were both equally crowded. And so I did a lot of maneuvering and got my car into the next lane. And a second later, a car came from behind in the lane I just was and slammed into the car that had taken my space I had just left. So I would have been completely rear-ended if I hadn't just followed that urge. And it was really like my body wanted to move. So I think so many times we don't realize that, we just think like, oh, you suddenly have an urge to go out for a cup of coffee, or you think I'm going to just drive a different way, or maybe you space out, and instead of going down the way you wanted to go, you go somewhere else, and then it's the perfect thing, whether it just saved your life or it brought you to meet up with a friend you hadn't seen in a while. Maybe that sense you had that there was a old girlfriend in the car. Maybe that you happened to be right in that place because of one aspect of you brought you there. It's pretty cool. But I would say those are, and then our other psychic abilities are telekinesis, our ability to move objects with our mind or make things happen in the physical world. That would be PK. And I think that a lot of people have that ability. Like they're not in control of it, probably most people, but I would say
I tried.
Big
Star Wars fan. Oh yeah, ever since I was a little kid trying to move stuff with my mind like Luke Skywalker. Oh yeah. I've actually had some weird experiences. Well, in my 20s, I did feel like I made a pencil move and I made a coffee cup move, but I don't know.
Oh. Did it seem like they just moved like a couple millimeters?
Yes, just a little bit. It's a lot of work for a little bit, Yeah. I just did some pendulum work too. I tried to see if I could make that move, and I had some interesting results with that. So, not me holding it, like literally it hanging there, trying to make it move with my mind. I was interested in all these things, still am, but in my 20s, I was experimenting with all of it. I was totally interested in all of it. And I wanted to be a cop at the same time. I don't know what I was thinking, because none of those people would accept that. Like I said, I've had a lot of experiences, like all those different abilities. And I know everybody's heard me talk about my experiences on the show, but it's how I relate to it, the subject matter, and what makes me a believer that it's real is my own personal experiences. And I've talked about this experience a lot on this show, but you're talking about holding a photograph. I had one experience where my wife invited me over to a friend's house, her boyfriend's house. They wanted to see if I knew if it was haunted, for one. Because my wife would do that to me. And as soon as we walk through the door, I go, there's something here. Something's weird about this place. And my wife goes, he knows. And then the owner gave me, he said he had pulled out all these 2 photo albums. He goes, the family that I bought this house from left these photo albums behind. I've been trying to get a hold of them to get them back. It looks like they're all about their father. And he gave me one picture of the father. He goes, this is the weirdest one. They took pictures from his funeral. Here he is in the casket. I've seen no names, seen nothing in that photo album with names or anything. I didn't really even look through it yet. Just have this photo, and I'm holding it. And I just said out of nowhere, I said, his name's William, but he goes by Bill. And the owner stopped. He goes, what? I didn't even told my girlfriend yet what his name was. And he walks out of the room for a minute, and my wife and her girlfriend are like, well, what's the last name? What's the last name? I'm like, I don't know why I said the first name. And I just kept on hearing this little inner voice in my head say, Eiler, something like that. I was like, it's something like Eisler, something like that. He comes back in the room, and they go, what was his last name? He goes, Eisler. I go, oh, my God, he just said that last name. He's like, I don't believe that. You know, like, no, my wife and his girlfriend are like, no, he just said that last name. And then I knew, it was an instant knowing that, and I knew this when I kind of walked through the door even, that the guy was an extreme alcoholic. And that's why his family wanted nothing to do with him. He was served in World War II. That I got from the photo albums. But that he had World War II paraphernalia or whatever from his day from back then hidden somewhere in that house. And I said that. And his girlfriend spent 2 weeks looking through the house, and she finally found a little hidden compartment, and there was all this World War II memorabilia.
Really?
And I was just instant knowing. And I remember going to my the guy who taught me how to be a paranormal investigator, telling him about this experience, because I think I was taking his class at the time when this happened to me. And he goes, that's pretty awesome. And like he said, I think everybody has psychic abilities, so it doesn't mean you're John Edwards. You know, and it kind of shot me down a little bit. But at the same time, it was really the truth of the matter. You know, it's like...
Why would he even say that, though? Because, you know, what you're describing there is exactly what... It's right on par with John Edwards. So, but, you know, okay, John Edwards is more experienced. He's practiced more. But what you just described, I mean, being able to repeat correctly the names, both first name, nickname, last name, and with everything else you got, like there is no better than that. Like where else could you go better than that except just being able to repeat that, you know? So
which I haven't done. I haven't repeated that.
Well, but then, you know, how many circumstances have you been in or situations where you'd be able to repeat that? And, you know, especially when it comes to mediumship in that way, it does also depend on the spirit that's around, how communicative they are, the connection they have with you. So, you know, that's not it's just like you call someone up and sometimes they pick up the phone and sometimes they don't. You know, if you called me, you can't help it if I don't pick up the phone or not. You know, so it's not just on you, but from what you're describing, if you did it once, then you do have that ability. And it's very possible that if you did want to do what John Edwards does, not that, like, I wouldn't even want to work in the way that John Edwards does. It would be like in front of big groups and on camera like that, it would be way too stressful. But I feel like you could do what he does if you wanted to.
Well, every psychic reading I've ever had, I've been told, oh, you have this ability and you're going to do it. And I mean, I've had guests on the show say that. I could never see myself put myself out there like that. You know, it's like I said, it's the expectation. And I don't know. I don't know. That's why I don't have your book. I didn't get it from your publicist. I would like to get your book. I have a number of books on developing psychic abilities, and I'd love to hear you get your take on where to start, and because I feel like I've always been all over the place with this. They're all random experiences. I mean, they're all random experiences, not controlled.
Well, and it really does help.
Except for my tarot readings. I should say I did tarot readings where I would know stuff. That's not random. That was expectation there. Me trying to do it.
Yeah. And how long did you do that for?
I messed around with that for a number of years. I had one really bad experience. It kind of threw me off of it. And I know you guys have heard this story before, but I was playing a lot of poker online, and I would get out that I'm doing tarot readings, and I do phone call tarot readings with some of these people I'm playing with online. And this one girl I did a reading for loved it, and she had to have her boyfriend have a reading. And I got such bad feelings from this guy over the phone, and nothing was connecting. He wasn't admitting anything, but I was getting like serious sexual sadistic stuff going on. And the next thing you know, it's like a dark out storming in my house when I'm on the phone with him. And I turn and I look on my couch and I see this dead guy, like a zombie-like guy in a black suit, white shirt, black tie, sitting on my couch. He turns up and he smiles at me, and there was like a flash of lightning, and he's gone, and I'm done with that phone call. I said, okay, well, obviously I'm not connecting with you. And I was done with it. And it scared me.
Wow. I was just getting major chills while you were talking there.
Nothing like that ever happened in a tarot reading. There was one other tarot reading I had before that, too, that kind of threw me off, where I didn't see anything or have anything happen, but I was getting a bad feeling from the guy, and like, you were involved in a murder, and like serious stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is too serious for me. And he was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Wow. So he didn't say, this is
bullshit. Yeah, I didn't like that feeling either. Those are two readings that both threw me off of doing the tarot thing, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah. Well, and that's what happens when you work with people. That's what it really comes down to, whether it's you're doing tarot card readings or psychic clairvoyant readings, mediumship, or just counseling. Anytime you work with people, you're dealing with a whole range of personalities and situations. And, what you're describing isn't going to happen that often, but it does. And whether it's with the person being into some bizarre things, or the person not being very ethical, or even, hurting someone. One of the things I talk about in my You Are Psychic book is early on in my practice, I used to read at psychic fairs, and and it was a great way to just get in a ton of practice. Like I wasn't making money from it. I would just go and with other readers, and then we would have these different areas that whoever was running the fair would like bring the person over to these booths. So we had like a past life booth, and then like a relationship reading booth. And so I thought, well, I'll sit in the past life booth. Like, I don't really know how to read past lives. In those days, I didn't know how to do it, but I was really nervous, but I was like, okay, I'll just see what happens. And so a guy came and sat down in front of me, and all he did was say his first name. And I just closed my eyes, and I started to get these impressions of like going way back in history. And it was like he was in a torture chamber. And at first I thought, oh my gosh, like I think this guy's being tortured. And then I realized, oh my gosh, it's not that he's being tortured, it's that he's doing the torturing. And then I saw images of kids. And then I was like, oh my God, I don't want to look at that. I'm going to look at another life for him.
Give me something better to work with.
Yeah. And then I went to another life, and I saw the same thing. And again, there was a kid. And then I went to like I told myself, okay, I'm going to go to like the very last life he had. But it looked like I couldn't tell, was this the last life he had or was this life? But he was like, there was like a kid sitting in the kitchen, and he was looking through the window at the little boy.
Jeez.
So here I am. I'm like, what the heck do I do with this? So I just told him everything I saw. And then I was just like,
wow.
I was sitting there, I read with my eyes closed. Like I was trained so that you don't look at the person because you don't want visual cues or distractions. So the whole time I'm reading and I have my eyes closed. And I'm just telling them this. And then I was just like, I think that there might be an issue currently. And I said, I think that maybe you might like be struggling with like some issues with like attraction to children. And I said, would you like me to take a look to see what you could do about it to like help with this? And like, cause that was all I could think of. And
oh my God.
I opened up like one eye to see, cause he was totally quiet the whole time. And I opened up my eyes and he hit one eye, and he's sitting there and he's just like,
oh my God. See, how do you react to that?
Well,
like, okay, I want to be wrong.
Racing. It was,
oh my God.
But I was like, okay, if I had been wrong, he would have totally told me. He didn't deny it. So I just tried to look and see what he could do. And it wasn't really a good outcome. All I got was that he might, like, I didn't get that he would be open to like going to authorities but I got something about church, like he might be able to like go talk to.
You need some
like,
Jesus.
Pastor. Yeah, like somebody at a church. So I told him that, and then he just got up He said, thank you. He got up and walked away. And I was like, what the heck do I do? Like, do I go call the police or but what evidence do I have? The only evidence was that he didn't tell me I was, full of crap. He just seemed to agree. So
Wow.
yeah, that was still probably one of the most intense experiences I've had. I had one other that was kind of like that too. I was at another. I started to do some additional training at this one school where people from the public would come in and do readings, and so or get readings from the students. So I was sitting there, and one of the instructors brought a woman in and said, there's no one else here to help you, so you're just going to read this woman by yourself. So the woman came in, and she was dressed really nice, really professionally, beautiful suit. She looked totally put together. She right away said that she was a businesswoman. And so I started to do this reading, and I'm getting all this stuff about her and her personality, and everything's great. She's, talented, smart, beautiful, everything's great. And then I started to get some different information, and I could hear as I was talking, I felt like I was completely contradicting what I had just said. And I started to get these weird entities, just pictures of, they almost kind of look like demonic, coming in. And then I'm like, okay, do I talk about this? I don't want to scare her. So I just kind of gingerly said, I do feel like there's a lot of kind of odd spirits around you. And, sometimes I see you getting angry, and it seems like they might be kind of making things worse. And then I just felt like I was going back and forth with all these different characteristics. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place here. So would you say your name? Because that's how I tune into people. I have them say their name at the start of a reading. But so I'm like, and again, I have my eyes closed this whole time. And I'm just like, okay, just say your name 3 more times, because I think I'm losing the connection with you. So just say your name 3 more times. So I say that, and then there's just silence. She doesn't say anything. So I'm like, okay, I say it again. Can you please say your name a few times? And silence, she doesn't respond. So I open up my eyes and look at her, and she's just got this freaked out look on her face. And I'm like, I just suddenly knew she couldn't say her name. So I'm like, is it that you can't say your name? And she's like, so I'm sitting across from this woman who can't say her name. Why? And then I realized that it was these spirits were coming in and out of her and trying to take over. And then she started to be able to talk a little bit. And then she started swearing at me, profanity, strings of profanity coming out of her mouth. And I realized this was someone who had at least had been diagnosed with multiple personality disorder. Right. In addition to, I was very sure that there were these other beings around her. But so I did ask, I said, has anyone ever diagnosed you with either schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder, which is not an easy question to ask somebody. But I did, and she said yes, that she had 2 different therapists tell her that she had multiple personality disorder. Wow. So that was my first realization too, that there is a connection between mental illness and also spirit possession.
See, I've always wondered that. We got to go. Wow, we're going to hold it there. We got a lot more to talk about. We're going to go to commercial break. When we come back, we also will open up the phone line. She's not doing readings, but I know a lot of you have your psychic abilities. I hear it in the chat room. I hear it when you guys call in and tell me about your experiences. Call in tonight. Get your advice on how you can develop that further. I want to know. I really should work on mine. It's something I've always been interested in, psychic development, how to develop it for myself. And I also think for the greater world. How would the world change if more people were able to access this ability? It would be a lot less lying, wouldn't there? The media wouldn't be doing so hot. We got a lot to talk about when we come back from the commercial break. Don't forget to call in and, like I said, let's learn how to develop our psychic abilities when we come back.
he is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHN Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
Yes. I don't like this. You only have 75 more to go. Okay? What's this one? It's a couple of wavy lines. Sorry. This isn't your lucky day. I know.
Wait, I'm getting a little tired of this.
You volunteered, didn't you? We're paying you, aren't we?
Yeah, but I didn't know you were going to be giving me electric shocks. What are you trying to prove here anyway?
I'm studying the effect of negative reinforcement on ESP ability.
The effect? I'll tell you what the effect is. It's pissing me off.
Well, then maybe my theory is correct.
You can keep the $5. I've had it.
I will, mister.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Debra Lynne Katz. She's a clairvoyant medium, and she's written a number of books. One of them is You Are Psychic, and I believe everybody has the ability to be psychic, and that's what we're talking about tonight. How can you develop that? I've had my experiences, like I said, they've been all randomized. They've all things that just happen. Only times I've tried to be psychic was when I was reading tarot, but I've had more amazing experiences just out of random happen. And I know I could tap into it and have this ability. I think everybody could. Imagine how the world would be different if we all could see each other's auras and know when we're kind of BSing each other. It'd be a lot different kind of world, wouldn't it? And I think that's the kind of world we could head into one day if we all started to realize these things, these experiences we're having are real, and that you can open yourself up more to these experiences and void that accident or void things that could be harmful to you by your own intuitive abilities. I mean, it goes back to the caveman days. Cavemen had to run and hide and use their instincts. It's in our DNA. Things from our primitive past. Intuition, I think. It's always been a part of us, and that's why I find it so interesting about this subject. With the material world and the internet and all these things that distract us from this ability, more people are being more awakened to it, but at the same time, we get a lot more distractions. So there's a lot to talk about. The phone lines are open. Oh, let me make sure they're open. Yes, they are open. You can call in, ask your questions of the guest. Remember, she's not doing readings, but if you have a question on how to develop your psychic abilities or want to share one of your own psychic experiences, please call in and join the conversation. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. So where we left off, Debra, was an amazing experience, and maybe a little bit of warning for people who think they might want to try to do psychic readings professionally, because that's kind of what I worry about, is running into something like that, because my two experiences, I mean, your experiences are really uncomfortable experiences there. I mean, one guy, I don't know what I'd do if I sat in front of somebody and I was getting visions of them hurting children or something wrong to children. It might go a lot differently than it did for you. Oh, I got to unmute you. Sorry, that's my bad. There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenging situations, and I think that it's helpful. I would sometimes younger people ask how they can get into this work, and first I tell them that they should wait until they're at least 18 to even start to intentionally read people. Now that doesn't mean they're not gonna spontaneously tune into people or dream about them, but it takes a level of maturity. So our psychic abilities happen within our personality, within our whole framework of our judgment. So people need to be able to, not that you're always going to know what to do in any moment. Sometimes you could use your intuition in the moment to know what to do during a reading about a certain situation. But I have a master's degree in social work, and I just got my PhD in psychology. Basically last week I graduated. Oh. And so it really helps to have this training in how to set boundaries with people, setting boundaries is a really big one. Having some understanding of mental illness, having backup to know when you really need to refer people out, not to just other psychics, but to therapists.
Right.
At least people, the ideal situation is a therapist who's also intuitive themselves. And sometimes that's really imperative because some clients who are having the most trouble, they themselves are having trouble with their own intuitive abilities, or maybe like what you could call out of control mediumship or out of control healing tendencies. And sometimes they're going to need ongoing support that they can just, I don't think it's the place of a psychic to keep doing readings on them. You know, some people, they came to the psychic to learn that, yes, they do need their therapeutic help at a very professional level, and they should be referred out to trained professionals. You know, in the case that I gave, when I realized that the woman had multiple personality disorder and also some possession, you know, at that point, I'm not going to meet with her again. You know, that's out of my scope. Even with my training, you know, she needs not even just a therapist, but a therapist who is trained in those issues. And unfortunately, it is really challenging because so many therapists, so many psychologists don't believe in any of these things. So to them,
it's just a multiple personality disorder, but you're saying there's spirit influence in this. There's a spirit issue attached to this too, and I think that's always been a big part of the myths in you know, for psychology and for a lot of mental illness.
Yeah, there's a combination, and you know, so they very well will have brain chemistry that's, you know, messed up, or some kind of structural problem, or, you know, genetic, or those things are going on. And that's kind of hard to say, well, did the spirits come in after they already had that issue, or
Right.
You know, what's the relationship? And I don't know. All I can say is it seems to be a correlation. And with some people, it seems to be more one thing than the other. But they're just, I've just had this over and over again where I feel like there's these spirits around that are causing problems. And then I start to get the sense like, oh, but there's also a diagnosis here, like bipolar or something else going on. And yeah, it's really challenging. So we do need to know, you know, what's within our scope to help someone with. And, you know, sometimes I've gotten a lot of people into therapy who hadn't been involved in therapy before, or they were like really opposed to it. And then just through me independently, like looking at them and saying, you know, you've got trauma here, and this is not something you've worked through it yourself enough, but I just really feel like you need someone else to like help you. And then they say, yeah, you know, I went and got that help because of what happened in the reading. I've had that too with medical, you know, where I get the sense like there's something really wrong with the person. And I'll say to them, you know, when was the last time you need a full medical workup? Like, I feel like you don't even wait a day, you know, go to the ER. Like, I've had a couple of people where I told them, I think you need to go see a doctor today, and if you can't get in, go to the ER. And this was purely from my reading. It wasn't that they even started off telling me they had a health problem. And then, like, it turns out they're like, well, I don't like doctors. And I'm like, when was the last time you were to a doctor? And they're like, 7 years ago. And in one case, I was just like, I'm hanging up now. Like, if you're not going to go, I'm not going to talk to you because you need to save yourself. And sure enough, she was in the middle of a medical emergency. I can't remember what it was, but she contacted me a couple days later, and she said like they had said like her signs were off the charts, and they admitted her. So yeah, that's what I think. You know, we're here to support and work with other professionals, and not just try to do it all ourselves.
It just, you know, the problem is in that field, you know, in medical and in psychology, it's, you know, what you do is frowned upon. You know, a lot of skeptics in those fields. So it's hard for people to find people who are more open to these ideas and seek help.
Yeah. Fortunately, I do think there are more people. I mean, I have so many students who are, I've had medical doctors as students, tons of nurses. Nurses seem to be just quite open to this. And if you look at the research of like professionals, like you'll find a lot more research on nursing and intuition than you will like practicing therapists and intuition. There, at least in terms of like really the formal research when it comes to practitioners. So I have a lot of nurses, social workers, psychologists. So it does seem like more and more are at least coming for training. But of course, it is still such, I'm constantly around other psychics or people open to this, but probably in the larger scheme of things, it is still harder. Now, one of the things I'm hopeful about is with COVID, of course, as you know, so many people are now working at a distance through Zoom calls and Skype calls. And it used to be for therapists that, they did not work in that way. They work in person, and all the licensing boards are very much localized to the state. So you can't even meet with someone out of state. But just since COVID happened, a lot of that's starting to open up. And I have therapist friends that are starting to be able to work with people all around the country or even out of the country. And they tell me they're not sure if this will remain, but they're really hoping it will. So that's going to make it easier for people who want therapists that are also very intuitively open to find those people. And it would be great. I don't have this yet, but I would like to start putting together a list of, doctors and therapists who are psychic and credentialed. I think that would be really helpful.
Well, I had a time in my life when I was 17 to 18 where I encountered a shadow person, I would call it, or an entity that tormented me for like 4 or 5 months. Oh, I thought I was going to lose my mind. It was intense and crazy. And my mom at one point found me just broken down in tears, suicidal, and made me go to a therapist. And I could talk about some of the things in my personal life going on that definitely made me depressed. But what was really bothering me, what was really going on, I could not talk to this guy about. Because he's not going to believe me. He's going to throw me in the loony bin for the things I'm experiencing. And one of the reasons I do this show, one of the biggest reasons I do this show is a place for people to come together to be able to talk about their experiences, because I didn't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah, this show is very therapeutic for that exact reason. And it is like group therapy. And I'm so glad that your show and so many others are out there to help people in that way. And if someone was saying, I'm having some visitation here and I don't understand what's going on, why it's happening, that's a great question for a psychic, at least for a clairvoyant who can, visualize it, tune into it and get some information, or a medium, but just a psychic practitioner. That would be a good question for that, as opposed to a therapist. The therapist might be able to help, with the trauma part, with whatever happened later, but you can become more traumatized if you have an experience like that and no one believes you. It's being isolated and being afraid that you're crazy is what causes even more stress and trauma.
Yeah, I thought I was losing my mind, and I never wanted anybody else to ever feel like that again. And it's why I got into the paranormal field, and also became more open to talking about my own experience, because for years I didn't want to talk about it. Because the only way we're going to learn is if we all come together and share what we know and what we've experienced. It's the only way we're going to understand, because I still, many years, 20 years later, don't understand what happened to me. I'm still trying to grasp it. We got somebody on the phone line I want to get to who's been waiting here. We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good, brother. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for calling in. You got a question for our guest tonight?
I have one question and then also just a short summarization just of multiple stories, and it goes hand in hand with my question. So, hey, Deborah, it's very nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
So, I do believe I do have some psychic abilities, but for me, unfortunately, I haven't been using it for the betterment of others. I've been using it very selfishly. And in the area I've been using it in is around gambling. So I remember the first time, this was almost 10 years ago. This is when I was first dating my girlfriend at the time, now my fiance. I remember the first time that I went to a casino with her. I'd never been to a casino before, didn't really want to go, but I said, what the heck, why not? I'll go. So I go to the blackjack table. I just have an instinct to go to this particular blackjack table. And I remember I was sitting there, and I was sitting with a couple of other people. I got dealt my first hand, and I ended up getting a 21 blackjack. And at the end of it, I ended up winning $250. I walked in with like,
I hate people like you.
So, no, you're gonna hate me more by the end of the night. So anyway, flash forward to a couple years later. I remember I was at a gas station, and my instinct came up again to buy the scratch ticket. It was a $10 scratch ticket. I ended up winning $250 off of that ticket, and then I said, oh, I'm getting another instinct to buy another particular scratch ticket. So I bought the same kind of scratch ticket. I ended up winning $100 on that. But then all of a sudden, I get another intuition to buy a $5 scratch ticket from the same line. I ended up winning $50 on that. And I'm like, oh, this is great.
Roll.
So yeah, flash forward another couple of years later, I was going to go get cigars over from my guy that hand rolls them for me. And he's not there at the moment. He's at the store. I said, well, I'm going to go to this gas station. I got to fill up my tank. And by the time that I come back, he'll probably be back as well. I ended up buying a $20 scratch ticket, and I ended up winning $500 from that.
Wow.
And now flash forward to this past weekend, I got back from a day trip, and I wasn't really in the mood really to gamble, but I just took a look at this machine. I'm like, well, what the heck? Why not? I'll get a scratch ticket. I ended up winning $100 from that. Now, the reason why I share those stories is when I get a desire to buy a ticket or to go gamble, I end up losing money. But when I have an instinct right there to go to a particular place, get a particular ticket, I end up winning. So my question to you, Debra, is in relation to my supposed psychic abilities, how can I be able to maintain a focus on that instinct without giving in to desire? What are some recommendations that you would have for me?
Well, could you just, when you say instinct, can you talk a little bit more about what you're experiencing in that moment? Like, how would you, I don't know if I want to say define, but just what's your experience of instinct versus what's your experience of desire?
It's really where I'm not really going in with the idea that I want to get a ticket. It just happens to stumble across my viewpoint when I look at a machine or I walk into a casino, whatever it might be. I'll look at a particular section right there and something in my gut tells me, go play that.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
It's not like
whereas for my desire, it just says, well, I'm just going to go right there without even thinking about it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it seems like you already you follow it, which is what's making you successful. How many times have other people had that instinct and yet they just walked away? They just fought it. But there's something about you where you let yourself go for it, even though it doesn't seem logical, and then you see it successful. So just continuing to pay attention to that and not to fight it. Now, it's, we're such complex beings, so it would be easier to sort this all out if we only had an instinct or only had a desire at two different times. But the fact that we can have multiple things going on at once does make it a lot more challenging. So, you're not always going to be able to know, but it sounds like, because you could just, what is a desire? Maybe sometimes I feel like a desire is also like if we want something, maybe it's something we're going to ultimately get, and we're sensing. We could even be precognitive about what we're sensing that we're going to have, but we feel such a lack. So if I like suddenly have just such a strong desire for a new car, maybe that's because in the future I'll have one and I'll know how much nicer it is than my current crappy car. So like I might just think, well, you know, yeah, this is just a wish and I'm so far away from it. But I have found with people in readings that it's almost like the closer a person gets to actually having the thing that they want, like the more they almost want it. It's almost like it becomes like more of like an ache or something that they so much want. And I think it's almost like a magnet, because them now and them in the future is coming together. But that doesn't mean that they're going to get it like right at that moment. So going back to your question, I don't know if I could even answer your question, or if I did, other than that's really cool. And it's also interesting because one thing that probably Jason didn't even know, but I have a new book coming out it's available for pre-sale on Amazon right now. And it's called Associative Remote Viewing, Predicting Future Outcomes for Sports, Financials, Elections, and the Lotto. Something like
I want that book.
Way too long title. But yeah, it's all about many different ways to go about using your psychic abilities to make bets and wagers and win things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Where these are our recreational pastimes, and some people are professional gamblers as well. And I call this the intuitive advantage. So you're not going to be able to do everything you want with your psychic abilities, but like all the time, it's not always going to work out. But there's whole procedures in place that are, a lot of them fall within remote viewing and some very specific ways of approaching remote viewing sessions. But some are more like clairvoyance, like where, like I have a client who once asked me if I could just visualize a graph of a stock chart that he would show me the next day. So he wanted to know if the market would go up or down. And so he said, could you just I'll have a graph tomorrow I can send you as your feedback. So I want you to just psychically tune into that graph you're going to see tomorrow. And I was like, well, I don't know if I can do that. I've never done that before, but right. I'll try. And so sure enough, I sat down and I thought of it. I just told myself I'm going to sit down for as long as it takes until I get some impression. And I also told myself, I don't even care like if my mind is like creating noise. I'm going to ask when this impression comes in that it's going to be louder than all the noise currently going on in my head. And so I just closed my eyes and imagined a screen out in front of me. And I suddenly saw a letter W. It was just a W. And I thought, okay, well, I wasn't thinking about W before, so I think that's the shape it's going to make. So I sketched it. And then I remembered from other different projects where a lot of times stock traders want to know like what's going to happen right before the close. So the closing time at the end of the day, or the end of the trading period. So I looked again and I saw like the final part of the W. It was a diagonal line that went up. So I drew that and sent it to him. And then the next day he sent me the feedback and he superimposed my sketch onto the chart, and it was a perfect match. It was a W. And so I continued to do that just a little bit. He started making it too complex because he wanted me to then like describe what was going to happen the very next day and the day before, and had all these questions, and it kind of kept me up all night long doing this. And I started to obsess and read him, and it got kind of messy. But that was my start into doing clairvoyant viewing of graphs. And I'm still new at that particular approach, but that's just like one really simple one. And I've been meeting other remote viewers who are using that approach as well. So in our book, we have a whole chapter just on how to do that. And whereas mine was more visual, other people are doing just doing a motion like dowsing or what their hands feel like drawing, and they're having really good results too. So there's a lot of different ways to apply our psychic abilities to these things. And there's nothing wrong with it either, as far as
I don't see anything wrong with it, Zach. You're making some money. Keep trusting your instincts, obviously.
I definitely need to get that book as well, because the Powerball is coming up over on Wednesday, and Zachy wants to make a big, hefty donation over to Paranormal Soup. So thank you so much.
Good luck.
So much for your insight. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
Thank you, Zach. You have a great night. No, I'll admit my greed and psychic abilities definitely went in. I tried to do like graphs and charts of like the numbers, like block numbers for a lotto, and like try to like envision it, like see it as a pattern in the graph for to predict a lot of numbers, and I had some interesting results. Now I'm just replaying the same numbers over and over. Jamie can ask. I almost won $1 million the other night. It was one number off. The 4 numbers I missed out of the 8 were 1 digit off each. Yeah, but I thought about getting back into trying to do those experiments, because it was almost like remote viewing. I was just trying to not see the numbers, but see it as a waveform, kind of like how it would come out if I could truly like connect the dots with where the numbers would end up on the graph, like to disassociate myself from actually just trying to call the numbers out.
That's a really good idea. And like seeing the shapes of the number, and you could even, like what does it look like on top? What does it look like in the middle or the bottom? And doing things like that, so it's not just your mind just like flashing on numbers. And I would say, like my co-author of the book, John Knowles, he's really interested in the lotto, so he has a lot of practice, and he's I don't remember how, I think like 15 times now he's won the one that has 3 digits, the big 3. So yeah, he's off the charts.
We need to get 8 digits though. We need 8 digits. And then you get the Powerball, and you're really talking about really throwing it out there, But if somebody could actually do it and repeat it more than once to win something that much, to hone in on those numbers, boy, that would. They could definitely. I've seen the books like How to Win the Lotto. If you wouldn't be selling books if you actually could do it.
Yeah, but you do all those digits, and I do know a couple of people that have come close, but just like you're saying, like they had almost all the numbers, and then they had maybe like a couple of them, like instead of 12, it was 21. So just a couple of the digits were off, but they were close. And I do know a woman, we talk about her in our book, who she won $100,000 in
nice.
Her somewhere on the East Coast. So people are winning money with their psychic abilities that we know of. And then of course, this could be a feature of so many people's wins, whether it's at casinos or the lotto, or and they may not even
some
know.
people just have a gut instinct for it. I swear they don't know it, but I've watched people like, you are the luckiest bastard. I walk in a casino, I'm like, all right, I'm already out of money at the slot machines. Well, these guys are like 1/4, all this money comes out. I'm like, every time. And it's like, you must be real lucky. You got the instinct. We got a couple people waiting on hold, so let's get to some more of the phone calls. All right, got somebody on the phone line. Who do we got?
Hey, this is Angela.
Hey, Angela. Thanks for calling in.
How you doing, Deborah?
Hi, Angela. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I had a question. What, if anything, do you know about sliders?
It's a great TV show.
Or are those the things you eat at White Castle, the hamburgers?
Well, that's
no, actually. It's a term that
I've heard
I guess is used for people who have energy fields that are oversized.
Ooh.
Yeah, tell us more about this. I have not heard about it.
I've heard a little bit about sliders and that, and some of the things I'm like, somebody accused me of being wrong.
Well, I find myself to be one of those people. Apparently, my energy field has a tendency to overwhelm things, like lights,
Can't wear a watch.
electronics, computers, watches. Yes.
Yeah, same here.
I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Well, and so that term is interesting. Why is it called sliders? Because yours like.
That was just I was trying to find information on that kind of a situation, and that term came up as, I guess, a name for people who have.
I've heard it too.
Giant energy fields.
Oh, yeah. Well, so is it the person's energy field? Like that could be one theory, that their fields are big. I mean, I've seen in readings effects of people with big energy fields. I don't know if I remember seeing that their big energy field had an impact on electronics, which, I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I've just seen where their field there were difficulties within relationships because their field was so big. It had other people would notice it and react, sometimes not so positively. But in terms of people being able to impact things around them, I have no doubt whatsoever. There's a lot of research that's been done and some very good case studies, but they were case studies because like the researchers would go out and interview the person or their family. There's been cases with kids that I remember John Kruth, who's the director of the Rhine Research Institute, which has been around since the 1960s or so. He was called out to do an investigation of a boy where it was just insane. Like he'd put on a watch and it would stop working. Everything. This was not just like, is this happening or is it a coincidence? Like he could not operate a telephone. The telephone would stop working.
Wow.
Everything. The microwave would stop. And other people around him, then like he would leave and then they'd go use it and it was fine. So the investigators came in and they set up all kinds of tests, 5 different telephones, and all the phones stop working as soon as they're right around him. And so they were, in this one case, John Kruth, who these are academic researchers who are not by nature very skeptical already. Yeah. And a lot of times because they're so skeptical, they just dismiss everything. It can be kind of annoying. But in this case, they were convinced that this was happening with this boy. And what they did was they taught him some meditation, some simple meditations he could do to kind of calm himself, because it was so bad, he stopped even wanting to go to school because it was happening at school and it was being totally disruptive. And after he did the meditations, it seemed like he could start to use some of his electronics and things started to normalize. So there's quite a few cases like that. I have this a lot. If I get mad, I could just give a couple of quick stories. I was at a conference and it was actually a conference where we were all making predictions in Las Vegas. And the man who was leading everybody, he made a prediction that kind of went against what everyone in the group, he took our remote viewing sessions, but instead of going with the wager, he should have gone, he went with another wager just because he personally wanted to go in that direction. And then everyone lost their money. And I knew that, and at the time I told him, that's not what you're wagering isn't based really on what everyone said. It's just your idea. And he was like, well, I'm the boss here. I can do what I want. And sure enough, most of the people lost their money. And so I was mad. And so I was in my hotel room with my friend and we were laying, it was totally pitch black. And I said, I'm so mad and I said his name and a bright light shot through our room. And she saw, I didn't even say anything. I just said, I'm so mad. And the light lightened up the whole room. And she was like, oh my God, did you see that? So that was one case. And then just recently, I had a research paper that was rejected, and I really felt like it shouldn't be rejected by this guy who didn't like my topic, a peer reviewer who didn't like my topic. And so I was like in my kitchen, and I was just really mad. And I was like, I've done so much work, and I'm just so mad. And I had a glass, and I took the glass and put it under the water. We have a water cooler. And so I was getting a drink of water while I said that. And I said, I'm so mad. And then the bottom of the cup, it was a glass. The bottom of the glass separated. Like I started to feel something wet. It separated and fell off the glass. Like a perfect cut. I used some kind of a saw. It couldn't have been more perfect. It was a complete disconnect. Laying on the floor, a solid piece.
So what you're saying is don't piss off Debra Lynne Katz. Well, Angela, thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
All right, we got another person waiting on hold here I want to get to, if it let me take their call. All right, you're on the phone. Who do we got?
Hi, Jason. This is Ariana.
Hey,
How are you
Ariana.
tonight?
Doing good. Thanks for calling in.
Hi.
Hope you're having a good Memorial Day weekend.
Definitely. I have a story, and I would like her opinion. Maybe she could help me on something. I have precognitive dreams, if that's the right word. I dream, and it's stuff
Comes the future.
that's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
And I'm usually 3 to 6 months, maybe, in the future. This stuff happens.
Oh, yeah.
And lately I had this dream about this certain person, and I tried to warn this person, about this dream, but I can't do it because this person isn't, well, he doesn't really believe in stuff like this, And it's important enough that when I do have these dreams, I can't sleep. It's on my mind 24/7. It physically and mentally bothers me to the point that I have to tell somebody, I have to tell the person about it.
Right.
And I can't do it in this case. So I'm wondering if she could give me any advice, if possible.
So, can you just share a little bit more? What was the dream about? Can you tell us the dream without saying anything?
Okay, I have a I astral travel usually every night, and sometimes when I astral travel, spirit comes and past loved ones come and give me messages. And this, my sister gave me a message. She's on the other side.
Yeah.
And she's waiting for she told me personally that she was waiting for this person. This person is in the waiting room. She's just waiting for him to cross over. And I didn't want to leave. And the longer I stayed, I heard ambulances and I saw, I was forced to come back to my body. Now, as I know this person, I can't tell him because he's, like I said, he wouldn't believe or,
But there's Ariana, you're
like
basically you're seeing his death, right? That's what you're seeing.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I don't see how it would benefit him to know about his death. So a couple of thoughts. One, it might benefit him to know that. Does he know your sister? Is he someone who knows your sister?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
One, it could be useful just to give like partial message that I had a dream with my sister and she came and she said that she'll she'll always be with you in life and afterwards. Like just kind of say something vague and then don't say anything else, and he could just totally reject it. That's fine. Like you could say something like that if you just wanted the message to be there, that your sister is looking out for him and will be here now and forever after, and just put it like in simple terms like that if you would like to. And again, it doesn't matter if he says that's ridiculous. Okay, so what? You got the message. It's not a matter of if he responds positively. I would not tell him, about the rest of it, because I don't see how that would all benefit him. Now, and maybe it doesn't mean what you think it means. Like maybe he will be in an accident, but she will still be there. So if he's not, even if for a person that's open to it, like I don't think it's useful for people to know that they're about to die, like in a sudden or something. Now, if someone was like really sick and they knew that they were dying and then you had that dream, then, yeah, absolutely. But that dream might also have been there for you. So, he's not going to be alone, that your sister's going to be with him. So now I don't know if you got a sense like your sister was saying, I want him to know this. But again, you can pass the message along in different ways. I'd be, just very careful about telling someone that, you see they're going to have die in a certain way. However, I would say that there's still, I've definitely in readings, I don't get it a lot, but occasionally I'll get a sense like this person isn't going to be here for that long. And there's things that you can do, even if you feel like, I don't think this would be great for them to know that, but, maybe it's like, okay, I feel like you should get your things in order, or
that's not what you want to hear from a psychic.
Yeah, that's a good point. But there's different ways of saying things, and then just to add, to tune in, and it's like, does this person need to know this? And it's a hard call, because sometimes they don't tell you that they already are on their deathbed. So it's just a case by case scenario. But that would be my suggestion. Either one of those. The important thing for him is that he knows that your sister is there to be supportive of him.
Well, I'd also, if it was possible, I'd like to try to maybe prevent it if possible. That's my other problem.
And this is where sometimes getting information about the future is not such a great thing. And I've had plenty of times where either spontaneously I found out about my future, or sensed something was going to happen and I knew that it would. And sometimes I knew exactly what it was, and other times I was kind of off, but it still happened. And it creates a tremendous amount of anxiety. So now you don't only have the anxiety when something does happen, but you have the anxiety of, when will it happen, and can I try to stop it? And like you said, you can almost kind of get obsessed about it. And I've just found that usually, no, you can't prevent it. And it might be something really different than you're thinking about. Like maybe he's going to have a close call or something, like that. Or and sometimes you get a really strong premonition, and it just doesn't pan out, So you have to be really careful. And I wish I could say there was an easy way so that you could let go of that anxiety, but I haven't found it, other than you're not responsible for it. It doesn't sound like there's anything you could do. You're not, if this was like your little kid and you could watch over him every minute, but it doesn't sound like that's the case at all. So but at least it should be comforting if it does happen, your sister's there and he's going to have help. I think that's really what I would focus on. That message was the biggest thing for you, not for you to do something, but maybe that something is just in communicating, just being honest, being honest that you had at least a dream with your sister and that she's there with him always, even, in the best of times and worst of times, or in this life or the other. And if he thinks you're totally ridiculous, who cares? That doesn't hurt you. So.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was going to say, if you're having the dreams of her talking about him, he could be having those experiences too. And if you tell him you did, you might find out he's having these experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. You won't know if you don't say anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to make a big deal out of it either. Like, just, I had a dream, this happened, and I just want you to know this.
Yeah. It just, like I said, this is pretty much personal, and usually when I have these kind of dreams, they do happen, and I certainly wouldn't want that. If I could change it, I certainly would like to, if it was possible.
Yeah. We're all going to die. There's no avoiding it. We all
Death and taxes.
So, yeah, at least
yeah,
your sister there. Yeah, and I wish there was something to make you feel better, but I've been there, and it's really rough. But I think if you just express a little part of that, you'll feel some kind of like you followed through on that message.
Yeah. Okay. Then I'll just keep checking on him and see how he's doing and things like that. I'll have to make a matter of that. So,
Well,
yeah.
Thank you, Azariana, for calling in.
Thank you, and everybody have a blessed evening. Thank you.
Yeah. I wish there was an easy solution to all of this stuff, but there's not.
No, when I was a teenager, I used to go to this. It was called the Fret House, or Planet Java eventually. But the guy that owned it was a really cool musician, and he was like a mentor to me in music and all that. But he told me something that always bothered me, and we were having like a really serious conversation about the stuff. Even when I was a teenager, I was interested, and he told me, he's like, about most people I see their death. He's like, I always see how people are going to die, and I never tell them. And he's like, it usually always comes true. And I remember, I'm like, oh, really? Is that, because he was one of these people that took like a liking to me out of all these different musicians that came to his place. And I'm like, oh, you don't see anything about me. He's like, I wouldn't tell you if I did. It's like, because I'm like, then why would you have this ability if you're not able to stop it or change it? Because like, I don't think he's like, I don't know why I have the ability, but whatever I do, it's not going to change how they're going to die.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awful.
Well, it's kind of like, is that even all that different than what we go through with our loved ones all the time, where we just like see people suffering, in the present moment, right? And we know they're not going to change, they're not going to listen to us, or maybe there's things they can't change even, and we have to watch their suffering. So in a way, I don't think it's all that different than when you have awareness of it going to happen, except you have, it's still the same. Like even now, just any one of us can think of a couple people that we wish we could do something to help them, but either we can't, or if they listen to us, we could, but they won't listen to us. And this isn't even about psychic stuff. It's just everyday life. So we're cursed in a way with having to watch other people suffer. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one in every aspect. But I think the confusion over what is my responsibility here, that's, and can I prevent things? Or, there's even people where they get a precognitive flash of something, or they have a precognitive dream, and then they're worried that maybe that means they caused, or they're going to cause something to happen. And no, it's not the cause. It's just tuning. It's like a memory of something that hasn't happened yet, but it's so we can remember backwards and we can remember forwards.
I became interested as a very young kid in time travel, and I think the main reason I did is because of all the precognitive dreams I would have as a kid. I had a ton. And even later in life, I had plenty. I mean, I've told a lot of these stories, like getting pulled over and telling my wife, like, before we got pulled over, she was, let's say, had a little bit too much to drink, wanted me to pull over. And I'm like, if we do, there's going to be a cop behind us. She's like, I don't care. I'm like, I've dreamt this before. This has happened. I've dreamt this exact thing. And we're on this totally dead of night, long country road, no sign of cop in sight. I'm like, we pull over, there's gonna be a cop right away. She's like, I don't care, pull over. We pull over. There's the light. I mean, stupid stuff like that. I mean, I've had like stupid stuff dreams that would predict stuff ever since I was a kid. I had a dream. I had all this like deja vu dreams stuff one summer. Like I was going out of 6th grade. It was after 6th grade, and it all led up to basically this birthday party of one of my friends. And I realized during that birthday party, like, this kid's going to try to kill himself tonight. And at one point he got really upset, went into his house, and my friend was like, don't follow him. I'm like, no, he's going to do something. He's like, don't, he'll be all right. I go in there, here he is with a knife, just like my dream. I mean, it's a lot longer story to tell usually, but I mean, these kind of things I've had happen, and I always wondered, can the future be changed? I had one in particular that always convinced me that, yes, sometimes these things can be changed, because I had a dream once, right when I first started dating my wife, that my best friend Chris tried to get me to hook up with this other girl, and she calls me on the phone. He puts her up to it, and I don't even know this girl, what she looks like, and she tells me to come meet him at this bar. In this dream, I go meet him at the bar while I'm still dating my wife, just started to, and things happen, and then my wife finds out at the time, my girlfriend, and it's horrible. She breaks up with me, and I'm super depressed. Like a month later, I get a phone call, and I hear this girl's voice. She's like, "Hi, are you Jason?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "This is it. This is the dream." I realized right then, right there, this is the dream. And I go, put my friend Chris on the phone. She's like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "I know Chris put you up to this. Put him on the phone." And she's like, "No, just come out and hang out with us." I'm like, "Nope, not doing it." She finally puts my friend Chris on the phone. He's like, "Man, just come out and hang out. There's nothing wrong. Just come out and hang out." I know what you're up to. Because I jumped it all, and I chose a different path, and I didn't do that. I didn't go out, and I didn't meet her because I didn't want to screw up things with my wife. Thank God I did it. 17 years, almost 18 years married.
Wow, that's really cool that helped you to prevent it. So that's a great example of that. Well, I had something very interesting. It was a shared dream with my
Those
husband.
are so interesting.
Yeah, and so I was having a dream that I was in this house, and I was having dinner with this guy I had never seen before outside of the dream. But so in the dream, he started like making some moves on me, and I wasn't like really, like I wasn't feeling right about it, but I was like, well, this is like, okay, I'll just kind of see what this is like. I haven't kissed another guy in like 18 years. So, we're kind of like doing that, but I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this in the dream. And then there's a knock on the door in the dream, and it's my husband, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's here, and I didn't even want to be with this guy, and what am I going to do? Because he's knocking, and it's getting like louder and louder, and he's going to break down the door. Okay, and then so that's my dream, and I woke up, and my husband was like, oh my God, I just had this really intense dream, and I'm like, what was it? And he said, well, I don't really know, but you were inside this house, and you were like in trouble, and you were in the house with a strange guy. And so I came to the door, and I was like trying to break down the door, but I couldn't open it. And I'm knocking on it, and I know you're in there. And I'm like, what's happening to her? So at the same exact time, I was on the inside of the door. He was on the outside of the door in his dream. And he interprets it as, like I'm in trouble, which I totally, that wasn't exactly how I was going to define it. But, and it was funny because I shared with him what happened, but then I left out, some of the details.
Now he knows. We got to go to our last commercial break, but it is funny because me and my wife, we both are into this, and there's one of the reasons why I loved her from our very first days, because we could totally talk about the paranormal and the weird, and she was into it and accepted me for who I was, and I knew it right away. But there's so many instances like us sharing dreams. I even at one point when I just first started dating her had this clear vision in my head of her wearing like a bandana, wearing this tank and these shorts on this cliff place I'd gone camping in Red River Gorge, Kentucky. And I somehow knew I was going to take her there camping. And then many months later, we go camping, and then she turns to me, and I go to take a picture, and I realize as I'm taking that picture, this is exactly what I saw in my mind. exactly what she's wearing, everything. So that's why I would get fascinated with time and how it works as things predestined. You know, I all these personal experiences I've had, like, I think are clues to what time is. And that's another whole other subject. We got to go to commercial break. We'll talk more about this when we come back with our guest, Debra Lynne Katz. Phone lines will be back open when we come back from this commercial break. Call in, get your advice on how to develop your own psychic abilities or share your own psychic experiences. Love to hear about it when we come back from the short commercial break.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
I will hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDev.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up. Do, re,
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Debra Lynne Katz. She's the author of You Are Psychic, an extraordinary psychic. She's a clairvoyant. She also does remote viewing. I'm really interested in her book coming out, Associative Remote Viewing. It's got a long title here but basically, I want to learn how to win the lottery with some remote viewing. I've always been interested in that subject, and I think it's very possible for somebody to do that, and it'd be financially rewarding. But you can call in tonight if you've had a paranormal experience. We got about a half an hour left, a little less than. Tell us about your psychic experience. I should say not paranormal, psychic experience. Or if you have a question on how to develop your psychic abilities, now is the time to talk to our guest, Debra Lynne Katz. But let's go ahead and get back to the show. So, talking about the, developing your ability as a psychic, what are some of the things just tonight people could do or learn, easy first steps, like baby steps into this to try to open yourself up to be able to use your abilities?
Okay. Well, first I would say that I do have 3 books on this subject. So not that I'm here to sell the books, but You Are Psychic, The Art of Clairvoyant Reading and Healing has a lot of exercises. The whole book is about this. But let's say that a person doesn't read or doesn't want to read it, and what could they do to start? Well, meditating will definitely help in practicing your visualizations. So anything you can visualize, and it's useful to imagine, to use your imagination to, say, visualize an object and then see it in as much detail as you can. And when I say see it in detail, like you kind of create it. So like you could do this, say, like with an apple, like picture an apple and the color and the shape and what it would look like on the inside or the outside. And if you think you have a hard time with that, you can pick up a real apple or get a few different kinds, look at it with your eyes open, and then close your eyes and just revisualize. And don't get into trying to be perfect or anything about it, but just go through the characteristics. And then after you do that, then explode it or just make it disappear or evaporate. And do a lot of those. I'll have my students do that 100 times a day for the first few weeks. And so that'll just help with your visualization muscles. And then one of the techniques in my book I talk about that I really like a lot is using an image of a flower. Now you could use other images too. It's basically using a symbol to interact with the information. So for example, I'll visualize a flower and have a person say their name, or I'll drop their name into the flower and I look to see how the flower changes. And this happens in your imagination or in my imagination. So, the flower was like plain and white, and then someone said their name and suddenly the flower grew, or maybe a petal dropped off or it turned purple. So then the key is to just focus on any one of those changes. Like it turned purple. Well, what's the purple about? I don't know, but the point is not to figure it out, but to just watch it and say, show me more. So it's like you're meditating on it, and then something else will happen. Now you might get another visual, or you might hear something, or you might get an instant knowing or feel something, but something else will happen if you can just stay calm and focus on that. And then if something else happens visually, then like, let's say you get a picture of a person driving a car. Okay, well, that's interesting. You could talk about it, describe it, but then focus on that some more. What about the person driving the car? Again, you're not figuring it out. You're just waiting. Let me see what happens when I revisualize this image of the person in the car. What happens next? Or I could even ask it some questions like, okay, person driving the car, who are you? Tell me about yourself, and then see what happens after that. So you're going step by step, and you're just, you want to start with something. Now, you don't have to start with a flower. You could just have like a plain screen and just say, I want to see a symbol that's representative of this person if you're reading a person. Now, that's for reading people. But like, let's say you want to practice your remote viewing skills of like tuning into a photograph or a location. If it's something that has physical components, you can actually like go to a location. So you can imagine, and it's not like you're forcing yourself to have a full out-of-body experience. But for example, like if I wanted to know what someone's house looked like, I would imagine that I'm leaving my body. Maybe I'm like flying out, I'm flying over to their house, and I'm going to go stand at their front door, or I'm going to walk through the front door and turn my head and wait. What do I see? And I'm just going to wait. I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to guess. This is the biggest thing, is I'm just going to see, just be silent and just be like, okay, it's dark. The lights are going to come on at any time, and I'm going to be able to see what's right over there. And maybe suddenly I see a fish bowl or something that I didn't know was there before. So that is a good technique to do with like getting real locations. And it's called movement commands, or doing movements. So it's like based on the premise of, if you were coming over to visit me, if you want to see what's inside my house, you have to walk inside my house. If you want to see what's in the backyard, you're not going to know what's in the backyard. If you stand in the front yard, you're going to need to move over there. And if you go up above 500 feet and look down, you're going to get a perspective of the whole neighborhood. So depending on, what your end goal is, that works really well. And I'll just say one more thing. A lot of times people want to know like how to find their missing objects, like their missing keys or wallet. And you could do the exact same thing. I like to first ground myself with a grounding cord, and then ground an object with a grounding cord. And then I'll imagine I'm going to touch the object. So physical interaction is very useful. So again, you're pretending, you're imagining, but you just say, I'm going to go and I'm going to touch my wallet. I'm going to hug it. I'm going to stand on it, stomp on it, whatever you have to do to get your body to connect. And then you're going to start looking around, and then you're going to get flows of information. And with that, I would say if you could be patient and don't just like jump up and run and go look for it immediately, like see if you can, stand 5 feet away from it and look at it, and then look at it from up above, or just change around and get some different streams of information. You could be looking for landmarks too. What's the closest landmark to this? And then write it down or sketch it and then go look for it. And that's the basics. I mean, it's in some ways it's not any harder than any of that. In other ways, it's just getting yourself to stay calm and going through those actions over and over again. So
the visualization part, I've always had a very active imagination, can visualize things very well in my mind's eye. It's just trying to decipher what is imagination, what is actual input from something, is the part I've had difficulty with.
Yeah, and that is a challenge. And if it's a subject matter that you already know a lot about, or you have reason to want to guess, it can be harder. So it's always easier to tell that if like something happens that you weren't, or comes to you that you weren't expecting, that's unusual or out of what you would already know. If it's something, you might be like totally psychic about it, but it's also like within what you would know or assume, and then it's going to just be harder, to tell the difference between the two. So I'd say that's like the way I know it. I have more certainty, at least if I wasn't thinking of it before, and it's right there. But it's and that's a challenge with looking for things, like where you think it might be and where you would assume it to be. I've had endless practice because my husband's always looking for things, so I get weekly practice on this.
Well, we're guys, we look right at something and can't see.
Yeah, it is interesting how that works. There's so, like, if he tells me like, no, I've already looked, it's not in the car, I've already looked. I'm like, okay, that's fine, you can say that, but I know I'm right, and I'll go find it for you.
Yeah. I had that recently today. I lost one of my slippers. He was like, if you would listen to me. Like, oh. But that's the thing. It's just I remember there was a story about Aleister Crowley, the occultist, and one of the things he talked about, you want to know the key to magic. He was telling somebody somebody was telling him, I think early on in his studies, that to visualize a pencil, to like every inch and centimeter of that pencil, to revisualize it every day until you have that down to memory in your mind. You take an object and do that. And it was the same as what for him was for magic, but for you it's for being clairvoyant or is developing that part of the brain. Like I said, that's something I think I have that ability. I have that ability to visualize things really good. It's just deciphering what's imagination and what's actually psychic input. I mean, like that vision I had of my wife, and that I didn't even see that as psychically. I just thought that was me imagining, I'm going to take her camping.
Yeah.
But how was I going to know exactly the exact image of what I would see when I took a picture?
Yeah.
That's the crazy part about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think, like, just people are, they think it's their intelligence or just, their regular mind. But so often I am convinced that people are being psychic throughout their day, like everyone is. And I've met people that were skeptics who said, no, I never have a psychic moment, but then they do things. I worked with one guy where he was being psychic all the time. Like he would just, he would know like basically everything I did during lunch and the conversations I had. And I knew like, he had been in a meeting and like, there's no way he knew where I'd gone or what I talked about. And he didn't know. He would just joke around like, oh, well, maybe, you did this and you had this conversation. And he wouldn't believe me when I told him that is exactly what I did. And that's exactly what I talked about. So sometimes I think that some skeptics might be so psychic, but they're like sick psychics, they just can't. And that's why even why would someone, there are skeptics who devote their entire life to trying to debunk psychics or anything having to do with this stuff. Why would someone devote a whole lifetime to a subject that's not real?
That's a good question. Right. If it's not real, why do you care so much about telling people it's not real?
Yeah. What's going on there? And maybe it's just there's something in themselves
there's an anger there with them. If you notice, there's an underlying anger to these guys. Like They really get angry at people for saying they're psychic.
There's so much anger, and they also seem like, as a bunch overall, to be pretty depressed. Like they're not happy people. But I do understand maybe part of the anger too is if you really don't believe in this stuff, like if it's just not at all possible, then anyone who says they're psychic is either lying. They're either lying or a fraud or deluded and insane. And there's no other explanations for if your worldview is really that there's no way this is possible. And, that's also why they're hostile, because, and especially if you're a psychic who charges for their services, it's okay for anyone else in life to charge for their services, but it's not okay, for someone who is a psychic who, as we already talked about, it's a lot harder to do a psychic reading, no matter how psychic you are, but just everything you're up against. That's a lot harder than a lot of other things you could do in your life. I've certainly had lots of jobs, and nothing compares to when you're doing a reading on someone or a remote viewing session on something. You can't be thinking about anything else. In that moment, you can't think about your own self, your own life. Your mind can't wander. You have to be, everything has to disappear. And in that time you spend, nothing else matters except for that. And it does take a tremendous amount of energy, and it can take a toll on you. And, I wish to say it didn't, because I encourage people to go into this field, but it wouldn't be fair to say that it was, easy. But then you've got all that going on, and then you've got some skeptics who are just like, oh, you're lying and you're defrauding people, or you're crazy. And it's, it's a tough one. You're not going to change their mind.
We do got one more person called. I want to get to their phone call before we run out of time. You're on the line. Who do we got?
It's your favorite person.
Hey, D.
Hi. Good. Well,
You're hard to hear, D. You're breaking up real bad.
I'm sorry. I'll stand up. I'll sit you down. Do you want me to call back or no?
I hear you now. You were just breaking up there at the beginning.
Okay.
You gotta make it quick.
Last night I had a strange dream, but I can't remember everything. But I do remember there was this dog. It was this like a German Shepherd, and and I know it was a female. And this dog kept on reappearing, like disappearing and coming back to me in my dream. And I think this dog was a protector. And at one point, I think it was in my dream, like somebody was in my house and I was trying to hide. And the dog put his arms around me for protection. And it was a strange dream. I just don't understand it.
No, it sounds like exactly as you're saying, that the dog was there protecting you. And you're so fortunate. You're so fortunate that you had that dream and that you do have someone looking out for you. And that was something I found out early on when I started to make contact with healing guides and just different spiritual guides. Because I suffered from night terrors as a child really bad, to the point that they put me on anti-seizure medicine when I was about 10 years old, because I would have reoccurring dreams where I'd wake up paralyzed like month after month.
Jeez.
And it was really bad. And so when I started to go through meditation classes and healing classes, I started to ask my guides to come to me in my dreams and help me. And pretty much the day after I made that request, I started having dreams where, just like the caller is saying, like someone was coming to attack me, and like these angels came in and just like, they were like these gigantic angels. And now I understand that archangels, like they're not just little, cherubs flying around, but they are like massive. And they just like obliterated the people. Like it was kind of violent, even though what they did to the people that were trying to hurt me in my dreams. But I have to say, like after that, that I used to always dream of people chasing me around and trying to hurt me. And after that, like those dreams decreased to like by 90%. Like I rarely, maybe I'll have like one dream like that a year, where it used to be almost every night for my whole life. So, and it happened when I really started to ask for that intervention and for that help. And I do believe that there are, from what I've seen in my readings with people, that there are at least a certain group of spirits that can only come in and help if you ask them to. So
Right.
Dee, I'm wondering, have you been putting it out there that you would like some extra help or protection, or did this just spontaneously happen?
Well, I've been going through a lot of upset in the past few weeks. Actually, last week with my appointments, and I do have my neighbor's dog, Reese. She's a protector for me with other people around me and coming to my house, and she's a protector. But she's a chocolate lab. But I was surprised about this German Shepherd appearing in my dream. And
sounds like you. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was like surprised that this and the dog. I know in part of my dream, I was hiding away from whoever was in my dream bothering me, and the dog just put his arms around me, and I think whatever I'm dealing with now, that I am getting help from this lady Kim with my appointments. And maybe this is why this dog is around me, let me know that whatever I'm dealing with now, that this lady is trying to help me out.
Yeah, you're not alone. It sounds like you needed some extra help and you got it. That's very cool. You're really fortunate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dee, for calling in.
Nice to talk to you.
Oh, you're welcome. I have to get up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Ooh.
My friend Mary's taking me to Clarksboro Parade tomorrow for the Memorial Day parade. So, and then I'll see my string band friends.
Well, you have a happy Memorial Day, Dee.
Oh, you too. And I'll have to work on my poem tomorrow and submit it on tomorrow night.
All right. You have a great night, hon.
I will. You too, and give me all up, okay?
All right.
All right. Thank you, and good night to everyone. And Miss, thank you for talking to me too.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
You know, but that's the thing. Dreams. I've had precognitive dreams too that were symbolic. You know, I know they were symbolic, and instance of that. And other ones that are just straight on the real deal, like to the T of what's going to happen. You know, I've talked about on the show recently with the whole pandemic and COVID thing. I dreamt of my dog's passing to the T, like exact scene and everything. And at the time, I wrote it off because I'm like, why would they be putting my dog outside? And I wouldn't take my children with me to put my dog down either. But all that was in that dream. It was a beautiful scene.
Wow.
I mean, and then when it happened, you know, because of lockdowns, I didn't foresee that happen. I didn't know about COVID coming. They had to put my dog down, and we had to go outside and do it outside on the grass and a beautiful sunset, and everything that happened is just exactly in the dream happened.
Wow. Well, I'm so sorry to hear about your dog, but that is really cool too that you did have that dream, and that's a really good example of how there's things that there's no way we would understand.
Right.
You know, why wouldn't you go inside with the dog? Like some of the things we've just been through in the last year are so bizarre and so out of the frame of reference that we've ever had. And I think there's a lot of examples like that with people. I know, like, I had clients where I told them things, you know, that I saw happening for them, and they just totally, it made no sense to them. They didn't agree with me, you know, and because there's no way that they could have anticipated what was about to happen. But
or understand it. Like I said, I could understand it in the context because I didn't have the context. I didn't know about COVID, you know.
Well, with your dream, did you like, did it worry you afterwards? Like, I mean, was your dog already sick, or were you just?
She lived a long, good life. And I knew her time was going to eventually come, and that's what I looked at it as. Because I remember telling this to my boss, who, you know, he has what he calls he doesn't have kids, he has his fur babies, him and his husband. They have the dogs. We talk about our dogs, and I told him, I said, I think it's going to be time for Bella. I had this dream. It was really intense. I woke up crying. You know, she had passed. I didn't tell him what was the details of the dream, but I told him this. He remembered it because when she died, I said, you know that dream? I said, you know, I had this dream, and it was totally true. He goes, I remember you telling me about that. He's like, I remember when you said about that dream. And it's just, like I said, you don't know I wouldn't know the context of that at the time. And I wrote it off because there's no way they would put the dog down outside. And there's no way I would bring my children. But all those things did happen.
Wow. And how long ago was that, or how between the time you had the dream and when she passed?
I had that dream in the September before, because she was passed, what was it, January or February? And I of 2021, so like, you know, in the midst of the whole pandemic, basically, or 2020. Sorry, God, I'm losing track of time because I can't believe we're in 2021 and this far into the pandemic. But during the lockdowns is what happened, and it was in the September before the pandemic broke out that I had that dream.
Wow! And then she passed what month?
Was it February? I got it because both my dogs passed within 3 weeks of each other.
Oh my gosh. It was
February, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that.
February, or I believe, yeah. I have to ask my wife; she knows better than me. But yeah, so you know, you're talking about 6 months maybe before it happened. Just the weirdness of me, the stuff I've been having the whole life.
Well, really, you know, everything, you have so many experiences and they're so clear and so much precognition. I mean, going back to what that person said, like everything you're explaining, like you're probably one of the most psychic people out there, you know, and it's just a matter of what do you want to do with it. You know, I mean, there's kind of a difference between, you know, sometimes just spontaneous experiences and then purposely trying. And there's a little bit of a difference in maybe how the information might come in, or, you know, but at the same time, if you're doing all of this, then if you wanted to do more with it, I have no doubt that you could get control over it.
Well, that's why I want to get your book, and I definitely want to get your other book coming out. You have a date for the associative remote viewing book?
Yeah, it's already being sold on Amazon as a pre-order.
Yeah.
And then it will actually be available on Kindle in a month, and then the print will be out probably in about 2 months.
I definitely want to get that book.
That'll be good.
Especially if you win the lotto, it'd be great. That's what I always say. Like, can't I just see the lotto numbers? I get all this other stuff. Give me the lotto numbers.
Yeah.
Selfish, I know.
Hopefully the book will give you some more insights into how to do that. And I would love if you stayed in touch and let me know your progress, because I'm planning on doing a research project where I have several clairvoyants and remote viewers tune into like letters and numbers and street signs and license plates. And I want to run like a number of trials and a whole bunch of people, and not just to test them, but to kind of train them. Yeah, you would be perfect for it. And
I'm willing to be wrong, because I know I definitely could be wrong. I'm not going to take it personally.
Well, I fully expect that people would like initially not do so well on it, but maybe start to self-correct, like see what they're getting right and try out different techniques, and we could just document it all. So I'm getting ready to do that. And Michelle, who's, I should give her a plug, my publicist and friend since high school, Michelle Reed Bulgatz. Yeah, we went to high school, her and my twin sister together, and now she's an incredible publicist. And anyway, she does research with me, and so we're going to run the project together on licensed street signs. So we will definitely invite you.
Oh yeah, let me know. I'd definitely be interested, and definitely would love to have you back on the show again. When that book comes out, I'm getting booked way far ahead, but we should get in contact and make sure we get you scheduled to come back on, because there's so much more we can get to talk about, like seeing auras. That's something I've experienced, and all these other abilities I think people have that they can tap into. Like you said, some people are stronger in other areas than other psychics are.
Yeah, there's so much we could talk about. And I have to ask you, who are the other people on the screen? I just want to say hello to you guys.
Jamie and Rob. They moderate the chat room. Yeah, they're too quiet.
Well, thank you guys for being here and for making this all possible too. It's nice to see your faces.
All right, that's it for the show, guys. Debra Lynne Katz, check out her books, You Are Psychic, Extraordinary Psychic, and Associative Remote Viewing, Science and the Art of Precognition for financial, sports betting, and the lottery. That'll be coming out. I can't wait to check it out. All right, guys. Next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel. I'm probably going to butcher this. Courtney Marchesani, I think is her name, and she wrote the book Four Gifts of the Highly Sensitive. So more about how to develop your psychic abilities, but a little bit different take about people who have highly sensitive traits and what the abilities to get with it. We're going to talk about that next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. And don't forget to check us out on Patreon. $2 a month does help pay the bills. And thank you to everybody who does donate on Patreon. It helps out big time. Also, big thanks to everybody who shares out the show. Keep telling people about Paranormal Soup, an open place where we can discuss these topics with no judgments. Great conversations every Sunday night. All right, guys, see you next week. Have a great night.